Hey, you guys, let's have a little, well, late night for some of you, early night for some of us, live. And, something I was talking to Mr. about, and we were just discussing the men and the women on YouTube and the different points of view and how, we all hate each other out here. You know what I mean? The men don't need a woman. They don't need a wife. They are not looking for marriage. The women don't like the men. The men are trash. The men say the women aren't worth anything. The women say the men aren't worth anything. And so here's my question looking at the Black community, because Black people, look, we don't say that men are trash. We don't say that women aren't ish. We say Black women are not ish. We say Black men are trash. Like, Black people, we don't have the sense of everybody else. They'll be like the Western in the Western in the United States, in the, in a country, to leave their options open to still be with the opposite sex and within their race. But in our community, we are like, Black women are not ish. They are fat, they are ugly, they are manly, they are what else are Black women? In our community, we say Black men aren't ish, right? This is what we say in the Black community. So here's my question. This is a real question. I was talking to Mr. about this. What is your point? I want you guys, I only want to talk to people who think Black men and Black women aren't ish. If you don't like Black women, if you don't like Black men, like if you think the majority are not ish, if you think majority of Black women are trash, if you think the majority of Black men are trash, I have one question for you. Now what? Now what? Okay, I'm going to acquiesce the point. Almost every Black man walking the earth is a pile of junk. Almost every Black woman on the face of the earth is not worthy of the womb that she was born with. Now what? What's your point? What's your point now? What is your point? I just wanted, this is a genuine, I've been wanting to ask, what is your freaking point? So, look, y'all know I don't care about interracial dating, marriage, all that. It doesn't matter to me. But if what we're promoting now is that Black people in general are unworthy of being in relationships with each other because we are such horrible people, the men are so terrible, the women are so terrible, that we should not be together. If that's what we're out here promoting, can I just ask you guys a question? Is what we're really promoting just getting rid of all Black people? I just really want to know. I want you guys to keep it real. Let's stop pussyfooting around this. Let's stop playing dense and retarded and all this kind of stuff. If what you're saying, right? If what you're saying is that your Black counterpart, be they a man or a woman, is not worth being with, and we should all just divest, we should all just be with non-Black people, the natural progression of that is that there will be no Black people left. This is not one Black person finding one non-Black person and having a baby. This is the promotion that the majority of living Black men and women are not good mates and should not be with each other. So then my question is, since Black people are so horrible, Black men are so horrible, Black women are so terrible, that we all need to just start looking outside of the community because we're all just there's so few good Black people that most of us should not be reproducing amongst ourselves. My question is, then what you're really saying is you want us all to be dead, right? You don't want us to exist anymore. Is that the natural progression? I'm just asking. Black men, you have Black daughters? We're gonna erase it after that, right? Black women are trash, so your daughter is trash, right? Your mom is trash. Black men are trash, so your son is trash, your father's trash, your brothers are trash. We're just all trash. So are we throwing our community in the garbage? Is black people is I just want to know, is the game plan that we just self-annihilate? Is that the game plan? Are we having all these conversations? Are there channels completely dedicated to proving that black women are evil, horrible monsters? Is the goal for us to not exist? Not black women, because if black women don't exist, black men don't exist. If black men don't exist, black women don't exist. There's no getting around this, okay? There's no getting around it. If we are past promoting isolated cases of people dating outside, and we've moved on to promoting that if it has a penis and it's a black person, bad. If it has a vagina and it's a black person, bad. If that's where we are in our rhetoric, my question is what you're really promoting like self-annihilation? Is this like a new version, right, of genocide? Like self-genocide? We just all have gotten together and decided that we don't want to reproduce with each other? Let me know, because maybe I'm out the freaking loop. Maybe I'm dumb. Maybe I'm stupid. Maybe I'm not, quick enough to keep up with the black female hatred and the black male hatred out here. Help me know, haters. I'm not telling you not to hate. I'm not telling you to reproduce with other black people. I'm not telling you not to run around and say that black women are the scum of the earth or that black men need to be burned at the stake. I support your right to self-annihilate. I just want to know, are you ever going to keep it real? Hmm? I'm going to eat the whole black male side of YouTube that hates women and the whole black female side of YouTube that hates black men. I'm gonna need you guys to come together and agree that you guys are one mind. You are of the mind that we should not interact with each other. And by not interacting with each other, we're all just going to disappear. So I just want to know, that's what we're talking about, right? Is that what we're talking about? I'm done playing the games. I want somebody to own it. Own it. Own it. Own it. Say, I hate black people. I'm mad that I'm black. I don't like you because you're black. And really, what I'm promoting is our self-annihilation. I want everybody to be with somebody non-black, because I'm hoping in about 2-3 generations, I don't have to deal with you people anymore. Come on, I'm gonna need you guys to just speak your minds. You don't need it. You don't need to keep proving that black women are horrible people who should never birth children. You don't have to make video after video after video about that. Just cut to the chase. I want to see no black people. How are you? I have a question. How are you pro-black man, but you don't want to have any association with black women? How are you pro-black women, but you don't want to have any association with black men? How many generations of black women do you think will survive before without engaging black men before there aren't any black women? I want you guys to really think about this. If black women stop dealing with black men, how many generations do you think it will take for there not to be any black women at all? Black men. If black men stop dealing and reproducing in mass with black women, how many generations of black people do you think we got in us? Y'all don't want to make babies together. Look, and again, I'm not coming down on interracial dating or interracial marriage or interracial reproduction. But I mean, if what we're promoting is that all black people should not be with other black people, that's very different. That's a different message, right? We have I met Bob, and Bob and I got married, and when we have, if you are black, I don't want you. These are two different messages that we're sending out here. So if what we're promoting to hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of black people is that we ought not to be together, if we're promoting this, is this not the promotion of self-annihilation? Is this not self-genocide? I'm just trying to know. Help me understand. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe you guys have a key to hating your counterpart in the Black community that I have missed? Why don't you cue me in on how we're supposed to survive as Black people if none of us is supposed to be with the other one? Not one, not two, not 5%, not even 10%, but overarchingly, 98% of Black men, we should not reproduce with them. 98% of Black women, we shouldn't reproduce with them. So since 98% of our population is not worth reproducing with, how many generations of Black people? Why do we even have a Black side of YouTube? Y'all aren't going to be around anymore. You're not going to be around. This is it. These are the last conversations of Black people. We might as well be nice to each other. We've already agreed we're not going to make any more Black babies. So fabulous. That's fabulous. I'm just wondering why we're not peddling this the way it is. Why don't we just call it the Black Annihilation Agenda? BAA, the Black Annihilation Agenda. Black imposed, Black enforced, Black erased. That could be our slogan. Let me know. Let me know. I really want y'all. I know some of you guys hate each other in here. Hold on. Let me put the. I'm only going to bring up one person at a time. I'm not going to talk to you forever when you come up either. One person at a time. You come up here and you explain to me how if you hate your counterpart in the Black community and you feel not only yourself but other people should not be with them, I want you to explain to me how that differs from self-genocide. I'm gonna need you guys to come justify yourselves. Make it all make sense. I'm trying to understand. One of us is stupid. One of us is dumb. One of us is retarded. Come on up. I'm gonna need you. Is nobody want to stand up for the haters, the self-haters in the group? Nobody wants to speak on behalf of the self-hate coalition? Is anybody ready to represent the self-hate coalition tonight? There has to be somebody in the house because I know for a fact that y'all are roaming free in the wild on YouTube, gathering by the thousands. So come through. Come through. I'm gonna need you guys to come through. Luna, are you coming up here to represent for not reproducing with other Black people?
I'm representing the BAA.
What is AA?
No, the BAA, isn't that what you called it?
The Black Annihilation Association.
I'll represent.
Okay. Luna's gonna be your first representative. I'm not playing with y'all. Come up. You guys stand by your. Okay, so here's the thing. Are you for Black annihilation?
I guess yeah. Well, that's the only way to put it. I mean, that makes
I mean,
sense.
at least you're keeping it real. I just wanted somebody to come keep it real.
Yeah, well, that's what else do you call it? I don't want to marry a Black man. I don't want Black children, and I don't want my children to be associated with Black men. Like, I don't care if my boys marry Black women because we have enough Black women to offset a lot of Black women who are like ratchet and stuff like that. So, I've found good Black women, but I'm way too terrified for my daughters to be associated with Black men at all. Like, I will disown them. I do not want them bringing home a Black husband. Absolutely not.
Okay, so I mean, but you're keeping it real. Luna just kept it more real than most because every time I've asked this question to somebody, they go, oh, it's like a record scratches, and they don't really want to take the next logical step. But yeah, you got to keep it real. But here's the thing. Here's my question. If the Black men, and we know, are also peddling that Black men ought not to reproduce with Black women, but that they should reproduce outside, and they're promoting this in mass and saying Black women aren't attractive and all that, then my question is, who are your mixed sons going to reproduce with?
I just assume my mixed sons would produce with non-Black people or Black women. I mean, we're not far enough in that BAA for any of that to actually matter. There's always going to be a Black woman that's going to be attracted to a Black man. You know what I mean? So I don't really see that ever actually happening. I mean,
So
Black
you
men.
think that the Black community can withstand the hordes of black men and black women who are encouraging people to not be with black people. You
Oh
think that
yeah.
we can, you think that if it's peddled, people can peddle this hard, but you don't think it'll ever fully take over.
Oh no, black men can burn the whole country to the ground and there will still be a black woman who's just like, okay, but it's because of white supremacy and what he went through. And I'm just like, sis, do you? If that's what you want, girl, go ahead. Get you that cane.
Nobody else wants to come and stand by Luna. Y'all, everybody's just gonna act like this is not their vibe. Because I've seen y'all in my comment section. I've seen you in the chat.
Is it
Don't
but
hold your
is it
breath
really
now. Don't
about
let
though?
Luna come up here and only be the real one. She's
Well,
at least she's
my
keeping it real. I'm just saying, I just want people to keep it real. That's my only problem. It's like if you're going to rock with it, stand by it. But to have I like the disordered logic of it all is my problem. The
my
pretending for me is my problem. At least you're realistic about what it could end up being. You don't think it's likely, but you're like, technically, that's what I'm saying.
okay,
But
but here's
most
another
people
thing
won't
I
keep
read.
it real like that. Who else is going to keep it real? Is Luna the only one? So
Here's
by the
another
stat,
thing.
by the tens of thousands, you guys believe this by the tens of thousands, but only one of you will keep it real. Oh,
Here's
that's
another
very
thing.
telling.
Here's another thing. It's not just, I mean, if it were to happen, I really wouldn't have an issue with it because we don't have a lot of people like you in the community, unfortunately, because those people, even if they are in the community, they're usually around other people that are like-minded. And so then you have people, like me who come up in like, a horrible neighborhood and stuff like that. And then I don't know, I just see all the negativity all the time. And that's not me bigging up any other community or saying that these communities don't have their issue. But the difference is if a black girl cries, she has no one there to protect her. She has no one there by her side. And when a white girl cries, she got the full fucking military there. And I
Wait,
just
so
don't want
somebody said, no, I want y'all to come up here. Don't comment from the chat. Come up here. Speak your mind. You don't have to come on camera. Pick an alias, come up here and speak your mind. Somebody said it's just going to be black Americans. Oh, y'all are tripping. See, y'all, this is the short-sightedness of it all. Do you recognize that we have non-black Americans that participate in these conversations and they say the same thing about black people where they are? You guys seem to think this is isolated to America. This is not isolated to, this is throughout the Western world. I'll tell you what, outside of the Western world, they don't have these self-hating attitudes in mass. But if you're in the Western world, Europe, America, Latin America, oh yeah. Oh, it's not going to just be a little smattering of black people in the United States. Oh, don't get it twisted, y'all. Now, oh, you guys need to embrace this. You really think if you go hard promoting that black men should not be with black women, and black women should not be with black men, that you
no,
have
no, there's a
control over
difference.
that beast where you could just stop it at the border of America. Okay, now that we're at the border of the United States, start loving each other. Is that what you think is going to happen?
I don't think black men should be with anybody. I think they're incapable of being with other people.
But then if they're never with anybody, if the black men are never with anybody, then there will be no black people. You need a black man to make another black person. That's an unavoidable reality.
No,
So
I feel like
if black men stop reproducing altogether, we're gonna run out of black people.
I
It's
don't
not
think
gonna be
black
long.
I don't think black men should reproduce at all.
But owning the fact that you are, what did I call it, the Black Annihilation Association. I mean, because that's
Yeah.
ultimately what it comes down to. If black men stop reproducing, that's the end of black people. That's the end of black women.
We don't have any protection anyway. So I mean, how what, what is the problem?
That's the end of black women. If it and do you know the men now now I know as hateful as some of you men are that you can march your little butts up here. Don't make it seem like this the women, because we know that the men are deep. The men are deep in male spaces, hating on black women too. Now don't let the ladies come up here. I'm as vocal as you know how to be and come over here and vocalize this hatred. But don't stand down now. Don't let the women act like it's not just the women, men. It's you too. You guys have whole entire channels. People are becoming little mini millionaires, little thousandaires off of hating on black women. So you guys bring your hateful selves over here too and speak your hateful piece. Don't try to act like the women are the only ones who have had these thoughts. in musings. Hi, Mama Kush. What are your thoughts? Are you pro the Black Annihilation Association or not?
You're probably on mute, Mama Kush.
Oh,
Or
I might
maybe,
be. Hello, can you
oh, there
hear
you
me?
go. Nope, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I'm gonna hop on Luna's courage here, and I'm gonna
Okay,
ask,
just doing it.
what are we holding on to? I mean, our culture is some crap, and it's like, what are we going to fight for pure blackness for when we're so terrible to each other, and we have greater benefits in being mixed? And that doesn't mean, that it has to necessarily be with white people. We can mix with anyone. Obviously, I mean, I don't need to say that, but what exactly are we holding on to?
I mean, I'm not even, I, for me, it doesn't even require a justification, right? Because there's a plethora of reasons that people might want to just feel like this black thing needs to end.
That's what I'm saying.
But I
That's
think
what I'm
it's
saying.
honest to say that instead of us,
Hmm.
here's my problem. My problem is not so much the ideology because people are going to have their ideologies. My problem is that at the end of the day, I do think we have to be honest about it's a widespread just hatred of blackness, period. Because even if we say like I love black men, we know that if black men, if you say I love black men in one breath and then promote not reproducing with black women, then you know the natural end of that is the end of
Hmm.
black men.
That's
So
not that's not hatred of
you cannot
blackness, though.
love black men and then say not to be with black women
That's
as
not
a
a hatred.
rule.
That's not a hatred of blackness, though.
I
I
mean,
don't
No.
if it's going to erase it, if it's going to end up in your annihilation, then how is it not hate?
my reasons for not dating them was because of what I went through. It was never because of the color of their skin or them just being black, but I
Hmm.
can't
Hmm.
deny the overwhelming evidence against black men and everything that they've done and everything that they've
But
put
then
us
if it
through.
And
ends in your own
actually,
annihilation, Mama Kush, what are your thoughts on that? And then we'll bring in Mr. 305. Mama
oh,
Kush, what
thank
are your
you.
thoughts on that? If it ends in the annihilation of blackness, how is that loving blackness?
Well, I think that using the word I mean using the word annihilation does sound really heavy and dramatic, and that is what it is essentially. But in a, I guess you could twist the perspective and be like, but it's actually self-love for black women, because we know that that it's more beneficial to us in the long run. I mean, there are some good black men out there, but we know there's not a lot. And so it's self-love for us. We
For
still
you
want
as
to
an
have
individual,
children.
but not for you as a black woman, just you as a woman, right? Because you would black women would cease to exist at some point.
It's a righteous
At
sacrifice.
some point. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like,
Do you
okay,
think
black women
do
would
you
cease
think
to
the
exist,
state
but what are we holding on to? What is
Mhm.
wrong with ceasing to exist is my point.
Okay,
What is
well,
wrong with
so let's
ceasing to
take the
exist?
judgment off of it, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But but I want us to own that. I just want us to have a real, like, raw and honest conversation.
Yes,
It is
yes,
the choice to cease to exist.
yes, it
Yes.
It's
is.
saying, I love
And that's what
myself.
I'm
You're
saying. Like,
saying
what's
that
wrong
basically
with,
it's, I love
why
myself
not?
enough to end this, right? To
Yes.
end this path that black
That's what I'm
women are
saying. It can
walking.
also be
Yes.
twisted, I guess, in that way. It's saying, well, I love myself enough to let go of this because this has not been beneficial to me for a very, very long time. I'm an
Razi, oh,
anthropologist,
I'm so
and I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Razi, you can't come up here because you want to be with black women. I'm only wanting to talk to people, black men who do not want to be with black women and black women who do not want to be with black men. If you love and want to be with other black people, I don't want to talk to you today. I want to talk to the other side, not y'all. Don't come up here talking about black love. That's not what I'm trying to hear today. I want to
Oh, I'm
hear from the
sorry.
people who are speaking from a different perspective. What did you say, Mr. 305?
I think he's still on mute.
Oh, unmute yourself. Did you say something? Mr. 305, you're
I
muted.
see his little mic. It's got a
All right.
little line.
Hello?
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Oh,
Hmm.
all right. I just don't understand why it's so much on annihilation. I'm a black person, and I understand. I love my people, but I understand this that y'all going through it. You know what I mean? Y'all don't have real brothers out there that'll stand with y'all, but we will stand with y'all.
No, you
I
can't
can't
come
just
up, Mr. 305. Nope.
okay.
I appreciate that, but I don't want you to deter from what they're saying. I want to hear from the people who feel self-annihilation has a place, and I want to hear from them why. Now it's beautiful that you are saying that. I'm not knocking that. I'm
He's
just
Yeah, I
across
saying,
the
love my black
internet. It
people.
doesn't even matter.
what'd you say?
He's across the internet. I mean, I can't even take what he said seriously.
That's okay.
Hmm.
Well, we're not going to knock him for wanting to come up and say something kind. I think that's good. But Mr. 305, just because I want to hear from the people who are pro Black annihilation, right? I want to
Right.
hear from them. So I do appreciate what you were trying to do. But let's hear from the other side, because I want us just to have an honest conversation about it. This is really important to me. I don't know why this is important to me. It's really important to me because I just want to clarify what we're talking about, because I feel like nobody ever actually says it. Right? I think we talk around it, and logically we know what the result of the conversations are going to be, but nobody actually comes forth and literally just owns it. Like, I recognize this is self-annihilatory. However, I'm still pro it, and this is why. I just want an honest
Exactly.
conversation about it. I think this is important for us to have, and not mince words and beat around the bush and pretend that we're talking about something we're not talking about. Organic African. Okay, is that what you came up here for? Based on your name, I feel like that's not what you came up here for.
Yeah, that's not what I came here for. The conversation is extremely negative, so I just thought like, I'm not Black American. I'm actually from Africa. So, I don't know if I fit in the category of Black man. I'm not sure.
You're a black man.
Yeah, you fit in the category. And here's
Well,
the thing, the conversation is negative. I want to take away negative or positive because I want people to
Hmm.
feel comfortable coming up here saying it. But this is a real conversation that is being had to the tune of tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of Black people online. So we can't just not talk about it and come up here and just be like Black love, and not talk to people. And also, I think when people embrace these ideologies, I think if we don't talk about it, they don't know what they're embracing. I really think some people are delusional. I'm just going to keep it real. I think some of y'all, obviously, Luna's not delusional. Obviously, Mama Kush is not delusional, but some of you are wholly delusional out here. Because if I say it's Black annihilation, you'll disagree with me, despite the fact that that's literally what it is. You don't even want to own it. You barely understand it. I respect somebody that at least understands what the game is
Yeah,
over
genes only
somebody that
last
has
so
no
long.
freaking clue and won't even the cognitive dissonance is my issue. Like, don't be dissident. Like, at
Rozzy,
are
least
what are
know
you,
you
what the
are
heck
talking
is
you,
about?
going on.
Nobody ever
question for
said
you.
we didn't want to be black, Rozzy. That doesn't make any sense.
No, they didn't
Well,
say they
I
didn't want it.
love being
Yeah,
a
don't
Black woman.
convolute it. But Organic African, we have positive builds where we love on each other every stream. This stream, though, I want to hear the ladies out and the
Okay, I mean,
gentlemen,
I
because
guess
y'all men are trying to act like you guys aren't a part of this, and you men are a part of this. We know that you're a part of it too. Come on up here, because any other time when I'm trying to have a love fest and build, you guys will come up here and hate on Black women. So come up here and bring your hate today. It's funny up.
can
You
I
Black
You
speak
know, it's
will
before I
kind
come
of
go?
up,
Can
but
funny.
I
when I
speak
try to
before
have
I go?
a positive build with Black women, every hater from the manosphere shows up to
Can
start
I
a fight.
say something before I go, sister? Can I say something before?
Sure.
I'm a person who's, I deal on the level of intelligence. And what I do understand about Black Americans since I've been in the United States is that there is a great deal of trauma operating in the Black American society. And I think that those trauma can be healed. And I think that for people to go through the healing, there will require a level of emotional development, a level of intellectual development, a level of physical development on the people. When I say physical development, I'm talking about brain development. Like the brain requires a lot of neural pathways and neurotransmitters for people to understand certain things. If you don't produce the neural pathways and the neurotransmitters that you need to comprehend certain complex situations in your environment, you're not going to be able to discern what is happening around you. And I think, like, from my observing from an outside perspective, the Black American people have gone under a lot of ordeal, and they live in an environment that is extremely hostile. And many people will see an alternative as survival tactics, like, okay, I'm going to marry into the whites so that I can get out of the cycle of oppression and whatnot. And that why that comes off as a solution to many. That's not a solution to the majority of the people. It's just that the answers are so limited because the conversations are so limited. The dimensions which you have, not just you, but everybody's having these conversations is so limited. There's vast amount of solutions for the Black Americans. I am part of a group that has done so much healing. We've healed Black Americans. We've healed people from Africa, people in the South America, in the Caribbean, people who had self-hate, who were depressed, who hated their race, who thought that we were worthless, we didn't have a purpose, we didn't have a destiny. And I have sat down and talked to them and giving them teachings that elevated them out of that state. They've come to love their Blackness to the point that you can imagine. So I come from self-hate because we are taught self-hate. The movies we watch, the music we listen to, everything is teaching us self-hate. So how do you expect us to overcome such a thing? You have to give something more substantial for people to be able to feed off of. We can't counter the media. We can't counter the images that are being displayed. We can't counter the speech, the script. We're dealing with propaganda in the image category, in the speech category, and in the script category. That's a lot of propaganda we are facing psychologically, spiritually, and emotionally. Of course, we are all damaged. The people on the continent are damaged. The people in the Caribbean are damaged. The people in South America are damaged. We are damaged. But the best thing we can do is right now we need to heal. When someone is damaged, people need to heal. There's no
Well,
passing the
so
I
blame.
this
We
mean,
is
need to
it's a
heal.
this
little
is
more
wait,
than
wait,
that.
wait, ladies, I want to say this. First of
Mm.
all, you would be in complete place on almost every panel I would ever hold on this channel, but not this one. Because I understand the urge to fix it, and I don't disagree with that, but I want to really have a conversation with the people who don't want to fix it. Because I think what's really important, and I'm going to drop you down because I want some people to come up who are about self-annihilation. I just want Here's the thing. I think the first thing, if we're talking about healing, the first thing is I don't think anybody's going to heal from something they haven't accepted they believe. And I don't think we can expect people to heal if their resolve is strong. I just want it to be owned that it's self annihilation. And if anybody thinks it is not self annihilation, but they hold these beliefs, I want you to come and justify how it's not self annihilatory. Right?
Can
So
I just
either
say,
acknowledge that it's self annihilatory and stand by it the way Luna and Mama Kush did, or, or deny that it's self annihilatory and explain to me how it is if you refuse to reproduce and we promote in mass not reproducing within our community. Again, I do not care about interracial dating. I'm not speaking against it. I'm speaking against the ideology that 98% of Black women are not worthy of reproducing with. That 98% of Black men, and I'm throwing 98% as in the majority, are not worth reproducing with. And if that is what we truly believe, how is that not self-annihilatory? How does the logical end of that not end up being no Black people or almost no Black people? How do we not end up being the 30,000 Black Aboriginals in Australia, where there's 30,000 of us left on the planet? How does that happen? Because it has happened. We're saying it's not possible, but it's literally occurred many times over. Many Black populations are completely non existent or are almost non existent. So let's not have the idea that it cannot happen. It can and has happened multiple times. Somebody said, is this panel for sound bites or is this a real conversation? Don't be idiotic. I only have real conversations on my channel. I don't have any soundbite conversations. I'm dead serious. Now, you guys can get together by the thousands upon thousands and super chat thousands of dollars all over in the manosphere and all over on the Black female side of YouTube about self-annihilation without using the word self-annihilation. I'm just refusing to pussyfoot around on it. I want you guys to come with that same energy. You know how you get in the chat, Black women, these Black bees, these whores aren't worth reproducing with. They're all ugly. These hair hat. You know how you bring that energy, that self-annihilatory energy. I'm gonna get myself a white woman. You know, white is best. I'm gonna get myself a Latina. I'll make a back baby with her. You know how you give that energy? Bring that. Bring that. Explain to me how it does not end up in your complete and total destruction and the destruction of everybody like you. If you're a Black woman and you feel strongly Black men do not protect, they do not provide, they are not good people, they are not good fathers, I will not reproduce with them, and I don't think other Black women should reproduce with them. Come and own that. I'm saying I called it the Black Annihilation Association, and men and women are a part of it. You have men and women don't like each other, but they are in complete agreement that they should not reproduce together. So in all of the disdain that these, groups of people have for each other, they agree on one thing, which is that they should not reproduce, not together. And so I am just asking y'all to come own it. Come up here and own it and explain it and help me understand. Help me understand. That's all I'm saying. Now, Luna came up and kept it 1,000. Mama Kush came up and kept it 1,000. And I think it's important to say, because people are saying they don't love their Blackness, they don't have a problem with their own Blackness.
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
they
that's
have no issues with their own Blackness.
Love my Blackness. Love
But
it.
they want to be happy in this life. And if that means that the subsequent generations of their bloodline are not Black, that's what it's about to be.
I don't
Can I
want my
also
I don't
add
want my
another
generation
little
Black.
twist? Sorry.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
go ahead.
I want to add another little twist that a lot of different races, Europe and Asia, like the Northern Asians, are having reproductive issues. Their sperm counts are low. Their eggs aren't working. They're not producing as they should on their own. So the only way that they're going to survive is if they mix with us as well. So why don't we call it some type of liberation movement or something? Because the only way these races are going to survive is if they mate with the stronger race. We Black people, especially in Africa, we don't have problems reproducing. We're doing just fine with our eggs and our sperm. So why don't we call it we're helping everybody else out?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean,
So
it would be helping them out. It wouldn't be helping you out, though, right? I want
yes,
to
it
just
would.
throw
I
that out
mean,
there.
helping,
And
we're
and
all
and
human,
let's
we're
be
all
clear,
earthlings.
every time Black people have in mass mated outside in mass, you guys, historically, every
Mhm.
time Black people have mated in mass outside of the Black community, it has been to their detriment. It's annihilated the Black population.
But
Give
look
me
at the
one
state of
population
our
of Black people
community.
on earth who in mass made it outside of the Black community, one indigenous population on earth who in mass made it outside of their community, who has more than a menial population at best, or none of them are left.
We don't
We
have
know
a
the end of this.
community.
The end of it is annihilation, and history has proven that out. So, yeah, you help them, I agree, but you don't help
Which group
yourself.
is that? Which
We
group
don't
is
have
that?
a
Are you talking about
community.
the Aboriginals?
Well, when I say what are you talking about? The
When
Aboriginals in
you
Australia, or
say that
when I
there's
said
one
native
particular,
populations?
yes, the like which native population,
I
or
was
is there
speaking
one in
all
particular?
native populations.
Okay, sorry.
So,
But
for
Hmm.
most of that was
example,
facilitated by white supremacy anyway. But
Yeah,
we
that
were
was a
just
lot
I
of
mean,
yeah.
brutality in that,
but if you
though.
are
There was a
doing the
lot of
same thing
brutality.
they did, right? If you promote
Uh,
doing the exact same thing they did, which is
mm,
Black or native bodies, right? Non-white bodies breeding out, then how is it different? They did it for
but
their
they
own
they did a lot
supremacy.
of
They did it for
war.
their own supremacy. If you do it for a different reason, but the end result is the same, how is it different?
I mean, but they did it with other things as well. They weren't just mating out. They were like
Killing.
genociding.
Yeah.
They were
Mass.
killing like 60 million here and there, 80 million over here, but and not mating killing, like mating washing out. They were like murdering people.
Yeah, and then
So
taking the
we're not
offspring
doing
and
that.
forcing them to do that, to breed themselves out with the offspring. So it was multiple things that
Yeah,
they
it was
did
like a
Well,
lot.
for that.
but keep in mind, how is
Disease.
it not multiple things now? So
Like what?
let's be clear. We know that, and this is part of the problem of why they're from a Black woman's perspective, because the men are obviously, you men are punks out here, because as hard as y'all go, you're not willing to come up here right now, right? But so there are women up here talking, but we're not going to pretend like we know that men's spaces aren't literally their bread and butter is hatred of Black women. We know this, right?
Mhm.
So we're three ladies up here having this conversation, but that does not mean that we're going to ignore the fact that the men have equivalent conversations and just none of them want to come rep for their crew. But we have those elements now. The element was to remove the man and to mate with the woman. That was the typical element.
Mhm.
Black men never were a part of the reproductive aspect of it, not in mass. They wanted to annihilate, right, the Black men or the indigenous men and reproduce with the women. And they did that through imprisonment. That was most of it. Like, look at the Congo. They imprisoned the men. Look at in Australia. They killed the men. They imprisoned the men. They made it with the women. So we actually have those elements in America, do we not? We have a disproportionate amount of Black men that are arrested and imprisoned. We know that Black male mortality rates are higher than almost every other group. And then we have the aspect also of promotion of Black men not mating with Black women. So that moves more of them out of the pool.
And whose
And then
choice
we
is
have
that?
But they're
promotion of
doing it
Black
the
women
That's
most.
their
only
choice.
dating outside of their race. So I mean, it ultimately there are multiple factors that are working toward Black people not in mass. Again, I'm not talking about individual choices, you guys. I really want to stress this. This
Mhm,
is not
mhm.
an indictment on interracial dating or marriage. I'm saying when it happens in mass, when the
Yes, we
majority
get
of
that,
Black
but
people
that's
start to
Black
carry these
men doing that.
ideologies, it starts to look different. What are your thoughts?
It's still the majority of all of that is the collective majority of Black men, which has caused a lot of Black women to not even want to deal with that. It's like, why am I going to bring Black children into this fucked up community? Why am I going to bring Black children and subjugate them to whatever you can even call this crap? You know what I mean? So it's not necessary, it's choosing to love your future offspring and wanting them to have something better to look forward
Better.
to than
Mhm,
dealing with
mhm.
this. What
It's
is
been like
this?
this for a long time, you know? It's like there is no light at the end of the tunnel. The tunnel, there's a brick wall back there. You're not getting through this tunnel. There's no end to it. We've been in a bad state for a very long time, and the problem is so deep that we cannot cure it by having more Black children. We're
So
putting more bricks on the wall.
and I mean and I do don't get me wrong. I don't
I know,
it's not
I
that I
know.
don't understand your reasoning, but I want to say that I appreciate your honesty. But what I don't appreciate is that we're capable of having these conversations in both
Mhm.
male and female spaces to the tune of thousands. But then when the conversation's really laid out in the most honest way, which is what we're discussing, self-annihilation, and if so, what's the premise of that? I mean, Luna and Mama Kush are being fed to the dogs to represent everybody. When you guys
Yeah,
have
yeah, we're
no
real
trouble
about it.
voicing your opinions amongst each other. I think that that's pretty lame. I really do. And it makes me think that you guys do not stand like obviously I cannot pull Luna or Mama Kush to task because clearly they stand by their ideologies and can articulate them and are willing to dialogue about them. But see, that makes me think a lot of you guys are just undercover haters and you're full of self-hate, but you don't really want to own what is going on. You don't have a premise. It's just a lot of anger and hate. It's just interesting to me how the chats will move so fast in those men's spaces and female spaces where we're having this discussion that you can't even tell what anybody's saying. But then when you have to have a calm, rational conversation where you really etch it out for what it is, two people are willing to stand by that and articulate it in an intelligent way, like that part is
Well,
crazy to me.
lots of Black men have been lying to themselves, and we've heard that on all of your channels. They truly, in their heart and soul, believe that when they have a mixed baby, that that baby is still Black.
No,
We
they don't
know that
believe
they
that.
think
They're
that.
liars.
I know
No,
They don't
they're
believe
complete
that.
liars. They're lying
I
to
can prove
themselves.
Pachi, you can come up.
I
Your
can
your
prove
views on race can qualify here. You're because you agree with Black annihilation as well. So come on up, Pachi. Do something because
actually, Irene, you're correct. So there was a man on TikTok, and because he came out too white, his Black father abandoned him because he said he was too white, so he couldn't be his.
He couldn't believe the truth.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing is I don't think they really believe that. I think they say that because you know why I think they say it? I think they say it for the reason that you guys were not afraid to come up here. You are intelligent enough to know I'm making a choice and I understand what the possible natural end for my choice will be.
Hmm.
They want to make that same choice and they understand the natural possible end, but they're too weak to
Yeah,
articulate it.
yeah.
And that is
They
what I
lie to
have a problem
themselves a
with, that
lot.
weakness, that
Yeah.
sliminess, where y'all will get together and have these conversations in vague, ambiguous ways and unwillingness to own what it is. I think if you're going to peddle that stuff, then you should be able to own what it is and have a rational conversation about it. Not just get hyper emotional on a panel or in a chat and fervently type about it like a crazy person. You should be able to own it, discuss it so that we can speak to what it is, directly to what it is. These, super ultra pro black what do they call it? Pan Africanists speak strongly about their views, but when we talk about Black annihilation, and that being a path that so many Black people are claiming they're willing to travel and want to travel, but then nobody wants to talk about it unless it's in a heated, ridiculous, kind of argumentative, bashing situation. We can't just sit and talk about it like rational people. That part I don't understand.
I don't think I
You
could
know
do
these
that
people
to
ain't
a black
rational.
man. I just really don't. I can't even look at most of them without just feeling some type of way. I just don't want to recreate that.
Somebody was trying to equate blackness to culture in the chat.
No, no, no,
Do you
no.
think
Genetics.
that are do you ladies honestly think that, like, if you don't racially create somebody black, or your children choose not to, or we all choose not to, let's say it takes over and other people agree with you and they're like, look, this community is going to hell in a handbasket, there's no need for me to live my life in misery, right? I'm going to do what I do, and I strongly advise you do too. And the majority of us get together and we come to an agreement and we do that. Do you think that even if the child turns out to be a whole white child by the time we have a grandchild,
Hmm.
that they'll still be black culturally? Or do
Sort
you
of.
think that's somebody else trying to, like, cognitively, break away from reality?
That's another they're lying to themselves
No, I think
once
it's
again.
50-50. I think if the parents, because Irene, you have biracial daughters, but you heavily promote blackness and stuff like that to them. So I think culturally they can identify with blackness, but for somebody like me who doesn't want to be associated with it and don't want my kids to, I wouldn't heavily promote blackness to them. I would give them their
My
Well, it's
father's
all, go
identity.
ahead, Mama Kush.
my my sister, her first husband was, I think he was from Honduras. So her children, her first two children were half black, half Honduran. I forget. I'm sorry. And then now that one of those children have had a baby with a white woman, and so that baby is what it is, what he is. And there's no point in kind of putting blackness or making him in black culture. He's everything. He's Latin, he's black, he's white. And so they kind of just do it all. Like he still listens to old school funk and R&B and everything, but he also listens to whatever his mom's listening to, and they also speak Spanish a little bit. And he's just everything. And they don't,
But
it's not
he
like
has
they're trying
exposure
to,
to both families, though, right?
pardon me.
He has exposure to both families, though, right?
Yes, yes, he does. Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I'll say this. For me, because I have mixed children, the difference is that um, my children's father, my first husband, his mother is dead, his
Mhm.
father is dead. He's from the East Coast. He's from New York. He came to California, and so the only family that he had was my black family. Every holiday, everything. My kids have only had a black experience because all of his people are on the East Coast and their immediate grandparents, things like that. He doesn't,
Right, the most important people.
right.
Yeah. Mhm.
All of his immediate family is not alive. His grandmother, we saw her after we were married, and she died shortly after, and his grandfather was already dead. So, um, they've only had a Black experience. So they resonate and they are attached to Blackness because that's all that they know. They don't. But for most, I think my situation is unique among blended families. Either they're around both cultures or they're around more than the other. I think Luna's saying she wants to separate completely from um, Black culture is in general. So her kids would probably not have that aspect of them. Mama Kush, you sound more like you think your kids would get both. And a lady in the chat was saying, well, if the biracial is created from the mother, then yes. If from the father, then no. I'll agree that biracial children who have Black mothers are probably more connected to their Blackness because
I
the
think
womb they
so.
came out of was Black. However, the child is not Black. And especially if you have a daughter, why would your daughter not pick what her father is? What's going to stop that? That would be my question. Most daughters are going to go for what reflects their father. And I
But
just lost that super chat. Hold on.
Black fathers leave. They leave a lot. So that's my child is Black. I vowed when I was very young, when I was like 19, I was like, I promise you, ancestors, I will have at least one full Black child. And I did. I only have one child, but her father left. And so it's like, yeah, she is fully Black, but he's not around to give her his influence. And I think, and that's what's happening. Like they're leaving our children, and it's like, so why are we doing this?
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, Jay Lisa said, wait, Irene, your children have only had a Black family experience. They do have privileges in other ways. That's facts. I'm not going to disagree with that at all. I agree with you, Jay Lisa. Or Jalisa. I think it's Jalisa. Sorry about that. Jalisa, I agree with you.
And I think
You're
that's
absolutely right. I would never deny that.
and that super chat, I don't think white people view biracials as white. I think they view them as Black.
Yeah.
But what I'm banking on actually is if I do not give them the Black experience, their offsprings will be 100% whatever their side of the family is. Because I don't just date like white guys. So
Their
whatever.
father's side of the family, she means.
Right. Right.
And I think, and that's honest. I think Luna is being more honest than I really promise you. I'm glad two more people came up here because it really ticks me off. I'm really kind of ticked off about this. Like, obviously, I appreciate you, Luna, Mama Kush, like you guys. I love you for your just genuineness and openness. But I am pissed off that we are 52 minutes into a live, and as deep as y'all roll, they're the only two people up here to keep it real. As Luda has said, like she's banking on her children growing up with the culture of their father, and their father will not be a Black man. I mean, that's honest. That's honest. I just want to, because here's the thing, I hear the rhetoric, but I never get to talk to anybody about the sedate side of it, the reality side of it, the how do we implement this side of it? What does that look like? Do you understand that it's self-annihilatory? If so, is that okay with you? Why is it okay with you? We don't have those conversations because a lot of people that are in the chat peddling these ideologies or on panels peddling these ideologies in these male and female spaces, a lot of these people aren't going to come out and own what it is, nor have open conversations because they think it's a bad look. But I think it's important, if we're going to be talking to Black people, that we talk to Black people with varying ideologies from an honest place. And that when people jump on board, I think to me, this conversation is like the abortion conversation. If you're going to get an abortion, acknowledge that you're killing your baby. That's all I ask. You know what I'm saying? I can't stop you, but at least let's not be delusional. It's not a clump of cells. It's not a bubble. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not a parasite. It's a baby. You're killing it, own it, and then go kill your baby, right? And I feel that way about this conversation. Like sometimes the truth, it like kind of stings because even Mama Kush said annihilation sounds, but I mean, that's what it is. And I'm not about to back down from my opinion just because you worded it that way. And I respect that so much more than, people, trying to throw rocks and hide their hands on the issue and pretend like they don't understand what's going on. Like, to me, we're going to have honest conversations or no conversations. Questions, Patchy, I'll get to you because I know kind of where you're heading with it. But questions, what's up? What are your thoughts?
Hi, Irene. How's it going? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So I'm going to give you the male perspective. I do want to put a caveat out there right now, though. This
Okay.
is based on me as a man being well over 20 years old at this point, which sounds a little silly to say out loud, but I've had quite a few years to speak to black men. I'm black. To speak to black men behind closed doors, black men who exclusively date outside of the black community, and listen to their rationale for why they do that. Now, I personally don't date exclusively outside of the black community, so these are not my opinions, but I can 100% guarantee you that the reason for dating outside of the black community exclusively for the purpose of marriage or reproduction. So I'm making a very specific claim here. It's not about casual dating. For marriage, long-term relationships with the potential or the desire for reproduction is annihilation of black genetics, of any trace of blackness. That is the main goal for men in the black community that are exclusively dating outside of it, without question. So it is about annihilation.
Interesting. Patchy, would you agree with that?
Well, just to be clear, you're saying the annihilation of the black people.
I mean, if you want to bring it into Black Americans, you can do that. I think some people wanted to do that. Now, we could debate if that's even realistic, a realistic division to make. But yeah, Black people, when, as far as dating, promoting the majority of Black people as unmarriable, people you should not reproduce with, be they Black men or Black women. That promotion and the decision to exclusively choose non-Black, if that is in mass, then that's essentially going to cause self-annihilation. And do you view it that way? Now, Patchy, we've never
Well, no,
talked about your
you know
dating
my
choices. I
views.
know you kind of said, the Black community basically go to hell in a handbasket for all you care, and you don't like the term Black at all. But we never talked about your dating preferences. So I don't know if you really believe in exclusively dating people who are phenotypically non-Black or not part of the Black community,
I
quote
just think
unquote.
that's such an awkward thing to think about because when it comes to the women I date, I only want to date a good woman. I don't care about there are beautiful women everywhere, so she could be whatever made up race she thinks she is. As long as she's a good person and she aligns with what I align with, I don't care what her race
Uh,
is. Because
well, then maybe
I
this
mean,
isn't
she
the
has to look
conversation
good.
for
I'm not
you.
gonna lie. That's what I was saying in the comments.
Yeah, because
But
it
if you're
has to be
saying,
for people who exclusively will not date Black.
I would
yeah,
love to
even
add.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, if you would consider being with another Black person, don't come on the panel. I only want to talk to people who this is not happening for me. I don't want a Black man. I don't want a Black woman. I do not want to be with a Black person. It's a negative for me. Those are the people I want to talk to. And please come up, y'all, because I know that there's a lot of you out there. So I don't understand why you guys don't want to come up and discuss this. That's baffling my mind right now.
I want to give a little bit of context to what I said earlier, based
Of
on
course.
conversation threads that I've had with black men who exclusively date out. And maybe you've talked about this a little bit earlier in the chat. I just got into it maybe 10-15 minutes ago, but I really wanted to share. So we're framing it right now, or you're framing it right now, Irene, as a sort of annihilation, getting rid of Black Americans, right?
Well, I
And
don't want to say that I'm framing it that way. I mean, if the path follows what is being promoted, that's what's going to happen.
okay, and I think that's a reasonable thing to say. When speaking to Black men about this issue, they often they often say, or the way they talk about this issue, it's often more about self-preservation rather than annihilation from their perspective. And I'll explain that a little bit better. So I'd say when I was in high school, I was speaking to a friend about this. He was adamant about not dating black women. He was Nigerian, so second generation. And I asked him why. You know, he's always interested in white girls or Asian girls. And he just laid it out and he said, and this is something that more and more black men that I've spoken to have repeated over and over again, which is that, you know, living as a black man, he feels a constant pressure, a constant sort of prejudice against him that he knows exists and feels overwhelming for him. He feels like he lacks. He said he felt like he lacked privileges that, of course, he would get if he was part of the dominant society, and he doesn't see why he would reproduce or have a child with a black woman only for that child to go through that same sort of, I guess, pressure in the future. Why not reproduce with somebody that will allow that child to have advantages in the future that he would not get to enjoy in his present position? And that's something that I've heard or I've listened to many other men say.
Yeah, that's what Mama Kush was saying too earlier, kind of, right, Mama Kush? Was kind of
Yes,
your perspective on it?
yes, it is. Yes, it is. But
And
but my question to that is, okay, so even the ignorant black men, and there's ignorant everybody, but even the ignorant black men that think that, why it's in the back of all of their minds. But so why then are they creating so many unfathered black, I mean, like abandoned black children? Why are they creating so many bastard children? And even when they get with other races of women, they're still abandoning their children. Like, I mean, is that part of like removing their blackness even from the black child? They like don't even want to influence the black child. Like, what is that about?
so I can't answer that question.
I know personally you can't, but maybe you
I,
can like
I
kind of
can't personally
compile.
answer that question, but I can give a little bit of my opinion based on things that I've seen. You know, I have acquaintances that are black men that have children with women of no color that they either spend a great deal of time with or spend very little time with. And so, one thing that I've noticed in their interracial relationships, and again, this is not all black men, this is just my experience with people that I know in person and conversations that I've had over many years with different black men about this issue. And one thing I've noticed is that there's always a hidden price that a black male pays when having a serious relationship with a woman that is not black. And that's regardless of whether or not the relationship is happy or the relationship is unhappy. There's always some sort of price. And it can come from dealing with the woman herself directly or dealing with the family. And I don't want to go too far into personal details of people that I know, just because I don't think I need to do that. But the amount of pressure that comes with that hidden tax makes it a lot harder for the men that I know to maintain a stable relationship.
Can I just say, honestly, at this point, I'm really respecting the women's perspective much more, whether I agree with it or not, because at least the women are willing to come up and speak about it. So far, Patchy, it just doesn't, for him, black is made up and he's going to pick the best partner personally. And he's not going to care about color. So he doesn't really count. And Questions is is saying things that are valid, and I believe they're valid based on the fact that it mirrors what the ladies are saying. But he's really representing for somebody that it's not really your stance, though, right? Questions?
No, that is not my stance. And
Right. So
so
that's why I respect what the for, because y'all, come on now. As
But I could
deep
tell
as
you why
you
they're
guys
not going to
roll,
tell you
I
that.
promise you, on every panel that I have, somebody from the manosphere comes over to toss the spot. Somebody comes over to make a mess of things. But the minute I have the one panel you could come up here and really say what you want to say without me shutting you down for negativity's sake, y'all don't want to show up. That is amazing to me. I mean, I'm just so done. I'm overdone with it. I just really am. I cannot, it's unbelievable to me, quite frankly. But David Johnson wouldn't count because David, he would be with a black woman. It's some of these other men who will go unnamed that show up on my channel. That would be the main ones to come up here, and this will be your conversation. The one live I have that actually is applicable to your butts, you don't want to come. But when I try to have a live that's building bridges and helping us heal, you want to come and act a fool. This is what I don't understand. You have all the things to say about black women when I'm trying to reconcile black women and black men together. But when I have a panel about people who aren't checking for y'all and you're not checking for them, you guys don't want to show up for that conversation. That just baffles my mind. I'm trying to understand it. Is that, how do you say your name? Shiel? Is that how you say it?
Shael.
Oh, Shael. Oh, okay. Hey, what do you have to say about this?
Well, I just came in like 10 minutes ago, so I'm not really following. What I would say based off of what I heard, I don't think it's logical right now for black women to just like solely date black men because of black men, like their treasonous behavior and them so willingly trying to like seek other women. I think it's like based on the numbers and the fact that we have a higher population than them, I think it's better for a black woman to just pick the man that's going to be the best fit for her.
And so let me ask this question. When you say pick the man that's going to be the best fit for her, that could be a black man, though, in your eyes.
Yeah, I don't think they should exclude them. Like, I don't believe in like divesting. I believe in having your options open.
Okay, you're kind of like Patchy. You two don't fit in this conversation. I actually rock with the idea of picking the partner that is best for you. And I discourage the idea that we should simply disregard the men or the women of the black community simply based on the fact that they're black. However, this conversation is more geared toward people who simply would not choose a black partner, men who would not choose a black woman,
And see,
women who would
Irene,
not choose
this
a
is
black
why I
man.
say that annihilation wouldn't actually happen, because you always have a black woman who is just willing to be with a black man. That's just not possible. There's always going to be a black woman who wants to be with a black man. There's just not that many of us out there who just want to be like, nah, get rid of it, throw the whole community away. There's just not. That's not even a real
Do you think
thing.
there's enough black men who feel that way?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So then
I don't know if
annihilation
there's
could still
enough.
happen, right?
No,
And it would
because
almost be inevitable, because if you think black men would divest in hordes, then
but
even
they
the black
already
women
have.
who want black men would not have access to them.
No, because then we'll be in the same situation we're in now, where you just have a bunch of black men going around creating a bunch of black wayward babies and not taking care of them. Same situation we're in now. They've already divested. And I don't even understand all this pressure and crap that they feel. They don't do anything. They don't fight. They don't protect. They don't
Okay,
nurture.
wait. Don't go through the reasons you
Can
don't.
I add
Don't go
something?
through the reasons you don't want a black man. I want.
Mhm.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Can I add
But
something in
but
real quick?
go ahead, Patchy. See, you triggered Patchy.
No, I didn't know. No, but what I can say is I do wonder, because I don't understand why anybody cares about what someone's skin tone is. I can understand facial features and body type, but not skin. But when I ask men that identify as being black why they prefer women who aren't black, Not a lot of the times it's really just to do with more personality behavior. And I don't like that either because I've tried to tell them. I said, well, it just sounds like you were around bad women. Why don't you just hang around the black women? No, they don't act like that. But they
I
swear up
would
and down
love.
that's what they normally see. So I mean, I'm not them. So if that's what they really see, I just say, well, move. I guess I don't know. But that's normally what it is. They say they don't like the way black women, I guess, typically behave.
Yeah, I
Okay,
mean, that's
so I
kind
was
of what
So
the women are saying too. My thing is not to really pull people to the table to justify why they're making the choice. My main question was just, do you realize that it's self-annihilatory? Like, do you understand that when we get into groups of black men by the thousands talking about how black women are not feminine, black women don't make good mothers, all this and that, and we should be with other types of women who are non-black, we should be with non-black women, is there an understanding that that is self-annihilatory in and of itself? Like what you're really saying is in mass, we ought not reproduce blackness. That's really the argument. And that's what I'm asking the women too. When we have these conversations to the tune of the thousands, do we understand that the conversation we're having is the majority of black women ought not reproduce other black people, which for me is a different conversation than simply interracial dating. Interracial dating is sporadically people are dating out versus the promotion that the majority of black men and the majority of black women ought not to be dating and reproducing. That then becomes genocidal in nature, right? Self-genocidal, but genocidal nonetheless. And I guess my question is, and the ladies, like I said, Mama Kush and Luna are very open that they understand that could be an end. Luna says it would be a very slow end though, because there's always going to be somebody to reproduce. But then we were talking about how it's multi-layered. If you have women saying this, we already know there's a shortage of marriageable black men that women can reproduce with. And then the men are saying this, and let's say we all decide to get on board. Sure, I hate you, you hate me, let's date out. Do we have the comprehension to understand that what we're really saying is in a few generations, if we actually followed the path that's being so heavily promoted, there would be no black women or black men to have the conversation, or there would be so few it wouldn't matter, as we see with other black populations who have almost been, either been completely obliterated or mostly obliterated, where their populations are so small. I mean, I guess you can say they exist, but there's not 100,000 of them walking, to rub feet together. So
But
that's
that's the
well,
more,
thing
how I view
too.
blackness, it will always exist because it's not. I try to tell people, okay, let's just run this down. If you take two people that physically you will say are black, what people consider black, and they have a child, you take that child and give it to some people who were not raised in, let's just keep it American black culture. They don't know anything about it. Give them that baby. That baby's going to grow up and behave like however the people around them were. What you call blackness is really just cultural, is a cultural thing. So even if
I
No,
they
mean
go
the
no.
out and mix
phenotype.
with
We're
other
I
people,
mean the
calibration genetic
phenotype.
oh well,
human.
Well, black
well
people
that the
have a
phenotype is
culture.
is on.
I think somebody in the chat said it best. Black people have a culture, but black is not a culture. We're talking about the phenotype.
Well, the phenotype will never go away because every human being shares every different
I mean, but
genetic
the
code of
phenotype has
phenotype.
gone away. We know phenotypes can be bred out. It's happened historically many times.
Hmm.
Why would you
Hmm.
think it couldn't go away?
It happened in Morocco.
Which phenotypes have gone away, like in the sense they don't exist on the planet,
Okay, almost every indigenous population in South America is either completely gone or virtually gone.
and none of their
Um,
Many Native
features or
American
genetic
tribes.
code
What
exists
they
for
were like
even
anybody
when
else.
we look at populations like in
500.
Australia, there are people who have Aboriginal background who present as fully and wholly European, and those
Hmm.
people have a very strong phenotype. I mean, it's hard to breed that out, but they can. They can do it just in a few generations. They've got it down to a science. You have people who literally get Aboriginal benefits, blonde hair, blue eyes, thin lips, pointy nose, which is the antithesis of what a natural Aboriginal looks like. We've seen it happen in so I talked about South America. We've also seen it happen in Mexico. What we look at as Mexican now looks nothing like the indigenous population. There are almost no indigenous Mexicans at all. And the ones that are left, even the mestizos, look so far removed from, and now they're helping to finish that work by coming into America and breeding with full Europeans, which, you know, in another 2 generations, they literally will have obliterated the original phenotype completely. At best, we see remnants, right? Little remnants of phenotype that are eventually bred out to their natural end. So
Irene, let
we've
me ask
seen
you a
it many. I
question.
think all
Okay,
of the
well,
population, if we look at East Asia, all of those native populations, those phenotypes have been bred out. I
Irene,
mean, what you have is an exotic looking white person, essentially, that looks nothing like the original archetype.
The white
Irene,
person
well,
is
what
white.
exactly
you
would
just
we be
taught me
preserving?
something. So,
Irene, what
I,
exactly
I,
is there to preserve?
Exactly.
Well,
That's what
I
I'm
mean,
saying. What
here's
are
the
we
thing.
holding on
yeah,
to?
that's a good
That's why I
question.
said I wasn't gonna. So I will say this: I wasn't gonna actually argue the point of
Mm,
why we should care or not care, because I don't want to put anybody on guard about their choice. I mostly wanted to discuss the choice itself and if we have an understanding of what that choice means. But I will say this: for me, not just with Black people, you guys, but I do think it's important with all variations of humanity that the extremes of those variations are preserved. I feel very strongly about this. Whether it be a super blonde, naturally blue eyed, very pale skinned white person, or a very dark, and then we have many on the Black side phenotypes of Blackness that are on that extreme end, Black person. I think it is essential that those phenotypes are preserved. I have nothing wrong with the beautiful spectrum of people in the middle at all. But what I'm saying is when people say the world will be beige or will all be mixed, I don't think that's beautiful. I think that the
why?
extremes are what give us the contrast to appreciate that beauty. And if we remove the extremes, right? If we remove the extreme phenotypes of humanity, I think that's extremely problematic, which is why I never knock people who are race preservists. I totally understand that and I support that.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that I disapprove of, like I said, the spectrum in the middle or procreating interracially or anything like that, but I would never ever suggest that we obliterate the extreme spectrums. I mean, why would you want to erase the very thing that makes all these people in the middle so attractive? Why would you
But
want to
Irene,
lose the baseline for that? I think that in of itself, that genetic pool is worth preserving, in my
I
opinion,
don't
in
think that
all of
stuff
its
will go
I
away
I
though, to
extremes.
have
be
a
honest.
kind of a personal question for you, Miss
Yeah,
Irene. Like, are you if you did a DNA test, would you be 100% Black? Because I'm
of
not.
course not. No, I mean, I'm an
Yeah.
American Black, so of course not.
Yeah. I mean that's kind of a point here too is that I'm not fully African. I could not go to Africa and like blend in anywhere because I'm like 67% African, 32% Native American, and I think 12 whatever the math is European. So it's like I'm not really like my ancestors didn't even feel that it was necessary to do this. Like there are people, especially in Africa on the continent, that will probably continue to breed. But here, in conjunction with our culture, which is just some crap right now, I just don't see the point in holding on. And I do understand what you're saying, and I do appreciate that, especially as an anthropologist, but also as an anthropologist. I know that people have been coming and going for the past 250,000 years. Like, oh, well, we'll just be another one of them. There's people that were
And it will
here
loop
and then
back
they're
around
not.
and be the same
It's
But
like,
thing.
I
oh,
mean,
well.
but in reality, when we talk about the progression of a population versus the annihilation of a population, that's different. That's why we have a word for that, genocide, right? Because population progression is a different vibe than annihilating a population. And that's why it's not looked at the same. Now, I could argue, like, the ancient people that lived in Laos looked very different over the years, right, as they bred and migrated and mingled than the people that are Laotian now. But that's a very different conversation from annihilating Laotian people, right? Or purposely breeding out Laotian people. Those are two separate conversations. And I also want to just go to something somebody said in the chat, who said that white people, can I find that? White people would never have this conversation. White people have had this same conversation for hundreds of years. The only
Thousands.
difference between when white people had it and when we're having it is white people had this conversation about intermixing and then blending out the people they were mixing with, right? That was their argument, is we're going to interracially reproduce, and then we're going to make sure that our offspring interracially produce with other white people so that we can clear out that non-white blood, versus us having the conversation is we're going to interracially reproduce to clear out black. Actually, we're having the exact same conversation the white people had, and let me just keep it real.
So
We're
Yeah,
having the
and
same
how many
conversation the white people had.
and how many times
We
do we have
haven't
to
even, I mean,
say?
we're having it from their
But
angle
they
too. We're
did
not
it for
talking about
advantage.
making mixed people that are then going to be bred with black people to breed out anybody else. We're talking about doing the same thing white people wanted us to do, which is
And
reproduce outside of our race or phenotype for Patchy, right? So that we could produce more white people. Just keep
Irene,
But Irene,
reproducing
didn't you
outside of
but
our
this
race.
is
say?
not just white people too. This could be any old body. This could be
Yeah.
Chinese. Well, I guess
Well,
they're white. But
I
I
think
think you
here's
said
the
this,
thing is that
Irene.
I guess I see the world very black and white. Like if I were to be pushed, I would say there are black people and there are white people. And if I were to be pushed harder, I would say there are indigenous people, black people and white people. And that some
it's
indigenous
true.
are black, but no
Okay.
indigenous are white, right?
So Asian to
That's
you
what
is just
that's
exotic white.
Kind of.
if you pushed me to it. So when you say I would date an Asian, there are black populations in Asia. And I don't mean Afro, like literally, I mean everybody. Africa is the cradle of life, but I'm saying there are dark skinned, my color and darker, not just in India either, but throughout Central Asia and yes, even East Asia, there are native populations that are very dark. Normally, when we say I would also date an Asian, we are talking about a white Asian person. We're not
Yeah.
talking about those dark skinned populations, right? Normally, when we say I would date a Hispanic, Hispanic's not a race, but when we picture Hispanic in our mind, it's one of those Hispanics who have essentially been bred almost Spanish. So
No, I think of
essentially a
Antonio
white
Banderas.
person.
I
Go
think
ahead.
of like I think of when I think of Hispanic, I think of like Antonio Banderas.
Oh, I don't
Yeah.
know what he looks like. Let me look at him.
What about
Oh, he's
the
fine.
black
He's
white
fine.
people?
Let me Google
that's the
him.
guy from Z
He
from
is
Zara.
he is fine.
He's
Is he a black
delicious.
person though?
He look white.
No.
He's kind of
A
he's like the same
beautiful
color as you,
man.
Irene.
Let me see.
Antonio,
No,
let me
Antonio Banderas?
Or
No,
like a little lighter.
No.
He's like a little lighter, right?
Antonio Banderas is pasty, but he is
Okay,
he's
Luna, we
beautiful.
can't trust your color spectrum.
He's not kind of dark for a Mexican.
He's a Moreno, he's got the brown hair, the dark eyes, the
Yeah,
dark eyebrows.
that's what I
But
was picturing.
Antonio
That's what I
Banderas is
pictured.
paste.
Irene, I think you didn't
Everybody's
tell.
perception of black is different.
What'd you say?
Wait,
What is,
what did you think about him, Irene? You thought he
I
looked
haven't
white?
seen him yet. Hold on, I
Oh,
had
I
to get
thought you.
the.
Does he look white to
No,
you?
my Mac died, and I had to get a plug for my computer. Oh, whoa! What in the world?
I know, right? Was turned into
Hey,
a okay.
This is not a
late night.
We're not
You put
clubbing
shades
tonight.
on late night.
This is a different kind of club.
Oh, who keeps saying that? I do not hate being black. I was just saying like I hated black men, and so therefore my option was to, go that route. I don't hate
I
being
don't
black.
think you. I don't
Can
think
I
you.
ask
And
you a
there are
question,
black white
Irene?
people, so
Irene,
what about them?
Yeah.
Where do they fit in all this?
why
Black
do you
white.
think more black women are more inclined to date black men than black men? How could we grow up in the same household and think so differently?
Well, let's be
Mm.
clear that black people are more inclined to date other black people over anybody, whether they be men or women. Black men do it a lot more. And You know, I did that video, you guys, Black Penis, White Vagina. If you watch the whole thing, that's why. I mean, and I'm going to say these are Black men who dedicated their lives to researching access to white vagina by Black men, and that is what they said. So I'm not going to argue with Black male scholars about why they do it. They
No,
do it
Vernon.
because of white worship. I mean, look, that's not, y'all don't come for me. I'm not trying to pick on anybody. These are not my words.
I belong on
Yeah, and I
medication.
don't
These
think
are the
that's why
words
we're
of the
doing it,
What?
Black
right?
people, the Black men who dedicated their lives, won Nobel Peace Prizes, are degreed academics who studied this. You guys know I provided like maybe 30 sources. I didn't even quote all the stuff I found. This is what they found. This is
You,
what they say.
you
That's what
guys,
Black men are telling me. So
you
I
guys.
don't.
I don't understand the chat. What is there? I don't understand. People are saying like, okay, what is there to preserve? That's what I'm asking. I don't understand you
That's
guys.
what
Okay,
I'm
Herc,
asking too.
You can't insult. Y'all, I did not bring anybody up here to be insulted. That's not
Oh,
the
I don't
vibe.
care.
I wanted to, well, I care.
I know
Don't
you.
super chat and insult. Okay, don't do that. So this is what I'll say. Oh, finally I got my Mac to turn on. I had to go get my plug. Um, oh, okay. This is a whole, really? He's
Oh, okay, no.
white.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
Yeah,
looking at
yeah,
him
he's
and he's
white,
not
white.
even
I
brown.
can't be
He's white,
trusted.
white.
This is a whole white man. What is wrong with you?
Well, he had the dark hair, and you know what? I
I
can't be
mean, he
trusted.
He's a
has dark
Moreno,
hair and dark
baby.
I
eyes.
told you, I
I
said
can see him
no.
with a tan and I can see him without a tan. And this is a whole entire white man.
Okay, so with
Mm-hmm.
George
When I mean
Lopez,
he
he's
is an
darker.
actual white dude, I mean,
He look exotic.
he looks of Spanish descent. I mean, if
Yeah.
exotic is dark hair and dark eyes,
Okay,
no,
so
he's a
that's a
whole
no
white
for him.
man. You could put him in
Okay,
But
Spain and none of us would know the difference.
okay. What
but
about George
that's what I wanted
Lopez?
to say too, because even if like we're in denial on the surface, subconsciously we know that there are not very many Black men that are eligible, that will be good fathers, that will be good providers. We know that. And I think this is on a subconscious level. And because of that, because we are still a species here, like we're still an animal, we still have a desire for preservation of our bloodline. So we still have a desire to reproduce. And of course, as mothers, we have a desire for our offspring to survive. And so that's why now it's kind of like this collective awakening of Black women, like, you know what, if I want my bloodline to survive, and by the way, maternal bloodlines are stronger than paternal bloodlines. They don't like to admit it, but in terms of when we're looking at old bones, we see the maternal bloodline stronger than the other one. And so in order for us to survive subconsciously, we know that we are just going to have to go out. And it's not really about, like, I mean, it is about the annihilation of the Black race, but subconsciously, I guess you could say on a soul level, we're saying, like, I just want my line to survive. I just want my blood to survive. It might not survive in the same color, but my genetics will still live on no matter what the color of the offspring are. So
Yeah,
that's
and I think, and this kind of goes to what Queen of Damn Near Everything was saying. She said, not insulting, just keeping it real. How can you love your blackness but don't want to preserve it? And I think that I was asking the ladies that early on because that's what I said too. I said, how is it not hating blackness, right? Just
But
blackness in
no,
general, not even hers,
nobody.
not even their own blackness. But I was like, how is it just not hating blackness?
But all the people in the
I have
comments
a
are
Using
doing
question
is
when you
that
guys
insulting.
are
Like they
to
ready.
can't even give valid reason. Like they can't even give valid answers on what is there to preserve. You guys are just basically throwing insults.
but
Give
they're
me
not talking about
actual.
like preserving blackness. They mean, how do you not dislike your own blackness if you don't want to preserve that? And I think what they're saying is they like their blackness, they're okay. Now I think some of these people with these ideologies, they may not like their blackness, but these two ladies are saying, I
mm-hmm.
like my individual blackness. I just recognize that it's not going to be preserving this phenotype in a way that's going to be healthy for me and my offspring because the community is trash, if I'm hearing the
Yeah.
ladies right.
Yeah, this is hella
Therefore,
trash.
I would rather make sure that my offspring and my offspring's offspring are good. And if that means that I detach from the Black community and
So
my
be it.
personal bloodline lasts, but those children are not Black, then so be it.
Yeah, it's
Is
the
that what you
collective.
guys are
It's the
saying? Because that's
yes.
the vibe I
Yeah,
got from
yeah,
Yeah,
what you
and
guys
that's what
it,
we're
were
it's the
explaining.
saying. It's
collective dysfunction.
subconscious too.
It's the inability. It's the inability to protect the children. It's the inability to build up the black community into
We're
something great. I
mothers.
don't see anything great when I look at the black community. I just see dysfunction all the time. What is there
So
to
are you
preserve?
You know,
comfortable with the idea? Let's say that this really took off, which y'all don't underestimate that this can't take off, because this will and can take off. I think it will take off easier, believe it or not, for black women than black men, because an attractive woman will be accepted by almost any man, no matter
Hmm.
where he's from. I think black men will have a harder time crossing that barrier because women overwhelmingly are very race loyal. So and then we see that reflected in the black community. But I think if black women latch onto this ideology, it will do a lot more damage a lot faster. I'm just going to keep it
Yeah,
real.
it will.
Than the black men. I think, the reason it hasn't taken off for black women is black women are choosing not to engage in this behavior. I think if black women actively chose to engage in this behavior, it would be very easily, right? It would put a dent in the black population, and the black marriage stats would really, really dip. Like the black on black marriage stats would really, really dip rather quickly, which is why I think it's crucial to have this conversation, because it could really become very annihilatory much faster, I think, than people realize if it takes wings. But it's like, you know,
Have
my
you seen
question
that
is,
news
are you
report?
comfortable with the idea of there being no black women?
Have
Yes.
y'all seen that
You
latest
said
news
yes?
report? I mean, it was
Yeah.
like 3 or maybe 5 days ago, where it was on a major news channel. I don't know if it was CNN or whatever one, but they were saying that we're running out of pure white people. They're saying that the white population is actually declining because of interracial reproduction. So they're saying they're running out of pure white folk.
Vernon
That
said
was
having sex with someone for another race is different from getting them to marry you. I think I think I think black women would find themselves getting married. Yeah, I think they would find themselves getting married. I think people are so race loyal, especially people who are not from urban areas, that if they are going to interracially date, that the chances of that leading to marriage are going to be high, especially because marriage is coveted. So I think if a person is stepping outside of that zone, like I said, especially if they're not from an urban area, the chances of that are very high that there will be a marriage there. Only because in various communities, marriage is coveted a little bit more. And then you add on to that you are interracially dating with a black woman. It's not like dating an Asian woman or quote unquote Hispanic woman who are basically white women, but to white people, they're different, right? When you take that extra step as a man, I think that's then becomes a serious consideration. But again, I say that with the caveat that that's outside of a major metropolitan area where you have a lot of blending.
And Irene,
Um, yeah,
it's not that I would be sad, obviously, if no black women existed, but I feel like ultimately it would be better, because then they won't be abused by black men, because I feel like that's really all they do to black women these days is just abuse them, use them. They want them to just sit around and be lonely. And
They would still abuse mixed women though, because that's what they
but
do to their preference right now.
I
It's
mean,
not
but
gonna
but
here's
change
the
the behavior.
she's
here
speaking on if it took wings where black women just collectively moved away from
it
black
would
men
just
and
be
stopped
no black
treating them.
women. There would just be no black women, and there would be no black men. I
I
mean,
don't think
because
black men should.
that's ultimately where this ends. If black men choose to be with non-black women in mass, and black women make the same choice, there will be no black people. Or if just black women completely divest from the black community, if a significant amount of black women leave the black community, then I mean, it will become annihilation at that point.
But look at the way
It,
they
it would
treat
just
I
if
think that's
black
a
there's
good
women.
no,
idea.
it can't.
What are they
There's no way
staying for?
around it.
Look at how they treat black women. What are they staying
I'm not
for?
I'm not saying I'm not arguing if it's the right choice. I don't personally agree with it, but it's not a choice that has to be justified. I'm just saying that's going to be the natural end. So when we have these conversations, as long as we're clear that that's what we're discussing when we say black women divest or black men divest, when we promote black men not being with black women in mass, not saying no interracial dating, I'm saying when you promote mostly interracially marrying and reproducing. When you say that the majority of Black men should not be married, or the majority of Black women should not be married by other Black people, at that point, what we are discussing is self-annihilation. That's what we're discussing. We're saying, I am promoting self-annihilation. I am saying self-annihilate. I am saying there's nothing here, like you said, to preserve, or like Patchy or Mama Kush said, the phenotype's not even worth preserving, right? So there's no culture to preserve. There's no phenotype worth preserving. And so therefore do not preserve it.
The
Go ahead
culture
and wipe that
definitely has
out.
to go.
So
Agreed.
You get that culture away.
Yes. Agreed.
this reminds me. Oh no, my battery's gonna die.
So with that, what did you say?
Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
There was two things I really wanted to bring up before having to sign off here. About one of them is about a lie that I think a lot of women fall for when it comes to Black men that exclusively date out of the Black community, and the other thing was just a story I heard once that kind of puts this all into perspective. So just cliff notes. The first thing is that a lie that I think many women fall for when it comes to men who date exclusively out of the Black community, based on my experience talking to them, is that they will say initially that it has to do with a Black woman and their attitude or their behavior. But if you pry, the more that you pry, the more you realize that these men who date exclusively outside of the Black community have a limited experience with dating Black women. So the more that you question them, you realize they haven't had serious relationships with Black women, in my experience, and therefore they can't really comment on what their issue with Black women is. It is more so that aspect of annihilation where they do not want, again, for reasons of self-preservation or for their progeny, do not want to reproduce and create another Black body that in their opinion will suffer the way that they have for having the misfortune of being born with Black skin. And then the second thing I wanted to bring up, as far as the story was concerned, is that if you imagine the end of this, where you have a situation where Black men and Black women are exclusively dating out.
Oh, you cut off. Oh, he fell
I
off.
think his connection dropped.
Yeah, I think his
His phone
connection
died.
broke.
Oh
But
no,
with
that was
that,
going to be good.
what were you going to say?
Yeah, the Black culture, they gotta, if they get rid of that part will help a lot of things, or they need to make it better, because that's why so many
First of all,
people
Black
feel that
culture
way.
won't be the same without actual Black people, okay? Because these little mixed people out here and white people, they try
Don't
to
just be
assimilate Black culture, and it seems like a cheap knockoff.
like,
Nah,
I'm
what does
not
that
gonna
look
lie.
what I'm
little?
saying,
That stuff is
what I'm
not
saying
coming
is
off the
that
same way. It's really
as
not.
someone was
Like
raised
little
in
pop.
American Black culture, the only thing I deem to be a part of American Black culture, I'm not talking about other
Hip hop's
forms of
gonna
Black
get real
culture.
jerky, and the food's
Hip
gonna
hop
get
is
real
not.
funny. We're gonna
It's
be
really
putting
just
raisins
the
and
it's just
everything.
nothing but negative
Yeah,
stuff.
a
It's
lot.
the oppression. All that stuff gotta go, because nothing else that I can think of has anything exclusive to do with Black culture in America.
Where we don't
It's
have
just the
food, we don't have food, we don't have patois, we
I
don't
don't know
have
any. I
art
don't know any
culture, we don't
food
have
But
that's
music
even that
culture.
isn't it.
We just have oppression. There's nothing else to Black culture.
American
Even that
American
isn't
Feel
Black
it
culture.
because
I
we
can't think
weren't.
American Black culture. I cannot think of anything specific. Like, for
I
example, a
just
lot of
gave a
American
whole
Black
list
people
of
say,
things. How can you not think of them when I just gave you a
What
list
food?
of
What
things?
But
food? Are you
all those foods
say it
came
again.
from
Say
slavery.
something.
help me?
Say something in particular. Say something that with
I
food.
said American Black culture consists of patois. It consists of a variety of foods. It consists of a variety of dances, music, art
Hmm.
forms. American
Can you
Black
give me a
culture
food?
is, you understand what culture is all
I know what
encompassing.
culture is.
Yeah,
I know.
it consists of clothing, right? All of those things, yes, that's all cultural. It's very funny that when we say Mexican culture, we understand sombrero, the little stripes on
Mariachi
everything.
band.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Taquitos. We understand. We understand when we say Mexican culture, but
Oh,
weirdly enough, we don't comprehend that when we say Black culture. We're
Because
thinking
it's
like
just
it's
saggy
like, what do you
pants
think
and
culture
sofa.
is?
But
How do
Black
you
culture
understand what
stems
no,
German
but
from
culture is
listen to
so
what
trauma.
I'm saying.
well,
No,
but you don't
listen what I'm
understand? You
saying,
don't
Irene. I'm
understand what
saying that
American Black
when it comes
culture
to
is.
American Black, when I'm saying American Black culture, I ask people this. I said, well, tell me some American Black food that's this is only for like only American Black
But
people.
that's
This is
like
something they're
saying, I
known to
mean,
be
that's like
making.
saying in reality, there's
I
lots
don't
of
know
foods all
anything.
over. No, no, let's not play
Soul
that game because
food.
there's lots of foods all over the world that are very similar to burritos, but we would not call a burrito, we wouldn't say it has no significance to Mexico simply because there are other
No, I
foods
didn't
that
say
are
that,
very
Irene. I
similar.
just said
There are a
what is
lot of
something
types of
directly
pancakes,
American
right?
Black
There are
culture.
a lot of types of pancakes. We don't say pancakes aren't an American thing because the French have crepes, right? Or because they have certain types of pancake foods in Africa. I mean, we are human beings, so obviously there are going to be similar things. But obviously, if you're going to say what are some foods that are part of Black culture, American Black culture, well, I know we eat low country rice as Gullah Geechee people. That's a very unique thing to
That's not
Gullah
American.
Geechee culture.
It's not
I mean,
American
we
though.
grow our own rice. We have our own actual,
Low
we
country
wait, we
rice
have our
is
own actual rice strain, a rice
Mm.
that is specifically grown by Gullah people.
But
And
that's not
it's a strain
American.
that's grown by us. So I'm just
that's
saying that's
American,
just
Irene.
That's
what
not.
did you say?
That's not
That's
American.
American culture.
No, no,
That's
no,
American.
that's not fully, it's not everybody's culture. It's not. Our
And
patois
then
is
there's
Okay.
not
things
all
like
of
All
America's
blues,
right.
culture. That's not
jazz,
true. That is not
All
true.
right.
Our
R&B.
patois is not all of
Okay.
America's culture. Most of American don't know who the heck we are. How are we a part of their culture? That's a part of Black culture, specifically Gullah
But what
Geechee
is
culture.
patois? What is patois?
Well, it's
You going
for
a lot of
me, I
black
would
people are
call it
going to
a
say what is
language, but a
patois. They don't
patois.
know what that is.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean yes, but
I'm just
what
saying a
is it
lot of black
derived
people
from?
don't know what you're even talking about.
That's what I
Yes,
said. That's
we
why I
all
said it's not
do.
American culture. It's a specific Black culture. That's
Are they
But what
from
is
you're making
America?
patois
my
Is
derived
argument
black
for
people
me.
from?
you're talking
You
about?
know what is American culture?
Jordans and
Hamburgers.
soul
No, no,
food.
no. Let's say American culture is hamburgers. American culture
Hamburgers and
is
French fries.
football with the bat, right? That's American culture. Now, we have subcultures, and that's American over broadly culture. And then we have cultures within America. We don't tell the Mexican people who are in America, who've been here for generations, that they don't have Mexican culture. They only have American culture. We agree that they still have Mexican culture. So why would you say that to Black people?
I never
We
said
don't
black
tell
people don't have a
people, we
culture,
don't tell the
Irene.
Irish people who have been here
Irene, I never said black
we
people
don't
don't
tell
have a
Irish
culture in
people who go
America.
back to 200 years that they're no longer Irish and they don't have Irish culture but American culture. We understand that they have their culture. Why is everybody in America allowed to have their culture, but then when it's Black people, it's American culture? How?
But
How is
what
that?
is patois derived
Irene,
from?
I just said I
Isn't it
never
French?
said
Isn't
black
it
people in
using
America
French?
didn't
What is
have a
you said?
culture.
What is
I
the Gullah
just
Geechee patois derived from, or just patois in general?
Oh, whichever one you're speaking of. What is it derived from?
I was speaking about Gullah.
Hmm.
And Gullah is a patois that's an emulsion of the languages that the slaves spoke from various West African cultures,
Hmm.
the preservation of those languages, and then emergence of I think that I could liken it to not quite Ebonics, but that same idea, like a Black slave dialect. So
So
Okay. I
yes,
those
thought there was
languages
French
and then a
involved in
Black
it as
slave
well.
dialect are emulsed to create a unique patois, which is taught in American universities as a language course.
There's
So
different types of patois because you have
yeah, but then
Creole patois,
we have the
the
Creole
Haitian,
people have their own patois, which is an
Okay.
emulsion with a French
Right.
and slave English dialect
and
and
St.
maybe
That's what
Lucia.
I'm
something else
saying.
that I don't
Like
know.
a lot of our culture is derived from slavery, though. Even
Well, our
blues,
ancestors
which
were
gave birth
slaves.
to
Why is
all
that a bad
music.
thing? We can't help that. That's not to our
Well, this
but
shame.
way,
isn't the
you
slavery we're
know.
referring to American?
No, there's
What
lots
is
of
your
slavery.
what is I don't understand your point.
My point is this. When it comes to black culture,
Are burritos
I'm asking
no.
older
Are
black people.
burritos Mexican food? Yes or no?
From my understanding, burritos was an American
But is it
interpretation of an actual
considered
Mexican
Mexican
food. I
food?
don't
Is
know
it
what it.
served in Mexican restaurants?
Yeah,
This is what I'm asking you.
In
It's
America,
a
yeah,
Mexican
yeah,
American food. But it's still
yeah, in America.
Mexican. We still go to a Mexican restaurant and eat it. No, they don't
Hmm.
serve those in Mexico. They have a different type of food. But once
Hmm.
these Mexicans come to America, they bring their culture, and then they create a unique culture of Mexican Americans. And we don't say that it's not their culture anymore. Same thing with Cinco de Mayo. We don't pretend that that's an American thing. We know that that is for those people. So why are we pretending the same thing doesn't apply for Black people? You think because of the
I'm not
fact that,
doing that,
and
Irene, at
when we
all.
say so much of our culture derives from slavery, I'm so sorry that we have such a negative connotation for us for slavery. Slavery is not our shame. Slavery is
No,
the
it's not.
shame of the people who brought slaves here. We don't need to be ashamed of that. There's nothing to be ashamed of.
No,
Now, maybe
it's
I
not
feel
about
that way because
shame.
my people still carry language from Africa. They still carry ring dancing and cultures that came from Africa within our culture. All right.
It's not
So
about
maybe I feel
shame.
that way because we don't see a shame in it. Or maybe I feel that way because my ancestors spent 50 years killing white people. I don't know. But I'll say this, that just because we are American Black and just because our ancestors were brought here by force on slave ships does not mean that we need to be ashamed of our culture because it includes slavery. That is something that has been ingrained in us. And while there are many aspects of slavery I'm not happy about, like how long it went on and why nobody just started killing people, that's an
Yep.
aspect of slavery I have a problem with. But I'm not going to be ashamed that that's part of my history. And I don't think we want to say like all Black culture is attached to slavery. Well, yeah, because we're descendants of slaves.
Wait, can I
But
just
that
Are
say,
you
the
see,
Jewish
wait,
our
hold
people
on.
culture
running
is
from the
built
I just
on
Holocaust?
want
I'm just
everyone to
trauma.
saying, are the
That's
understand.
Jews
what that
I
running
is.
from
didn't
the
say any of
Mhm.
Holocaust?
those things.
Are the Jews
I didn't
running
say
from
any
the
of those things. I
Holocaust?
just want
That's all I
everybody to
want to
remember.
know.
I didn't
Are the
We're
say
Jews
still
running from
talking
the
I didn't
about
say any of those
Holocaust,
things.
or do they embrace that
I
crap?
don't know what Jewish people do
oh no,
actually.
You
no,
don't
they
know
I
what the
never
embrace
really
Jews
it.
are
interacted
doing,
with them.
really? You really
They
don't know
embrace
what
it.
they're
They've
doing,
made
all
many
these
I
documentaries and
seriously
movies
comments.
I
and
never met
and
a
crap
Jewish
that they do.
person,
We
and I
don't know
don't
how the
watch
Jews
Jewish
view it.
information.
Why are you going to
I
be
don't watch Jewish
disingenuous? You
people.
don't know what the Jews think of the
I'm
Holocaust.
not. Irene, I do not pay attention to Jewish people. I don't know what they
Well,
do.
you should because they're
Oh
part of the
goodness.
world. You should pay attention to
I can't, because
everybody a
that's
little bit.
disingenuous. We know what these Jews are out here doing. We know how they pander, these white Jews pander and carry on about the Holocaust as if it was the worst thing that ever happened to humanity when 3 times as many Black
Oh,
people were
I
killed
know
in the
that. I
Congo.
thought you were asking me, do I know what Jewish people do personally in their home? I don't know what they
No,
do
I
in their
was
home, but
saying
yeah, I know they
Not
I
like
promote the
they
said, do they
ask
Holocaust.
you like
detach
it is.
themselves from the Holocaust?
Oh no, yeah, of course they attach themselves to the Holocaust.
Well, do they detach themselves from the slavery they had in
No, they
Egypt?
attach
No,
them
they
to.
don't. They embrace all that crap, and it doesn't make them any less for it, but we feel like less because we grew up in a Eurocentric culture that makes us look at our food and our culture and our history as bad. We're always portrayed in every movie, in every book, like our beginning and end is slavery, and that makes us bad. The people who did the most egregious things get to be told that they can't feel bad, but we still to this day in 2021, we look down on the fact that everything about our culture is attached to slavery. It is, because we're American descendants of slaves. It just is what it is, and that's not a bad
But
thing.
my point is that our
I
culture
think that
is, I mean, it's not, it shouldn't be, but because of all the other elements and all the other ingredients involved, it is built on trauma. Jewish people had, they were always themselves in their own land. They have a home to go back to, whatever. And I guess African American people do too if we want to go back to Africa. But like so much of our culture is built on trauma, and it's a direct link to trauma. Like Jewish people have a culture before the Holocaust that they they also embrace and everything. But for African American people, it's like our culture here, a lot of them think, we all know that that's not true. We know that there were probably African people in America before slavery as well, but so much of our modern day culture is built on just pure trauma. And so that's why it's we're acting like it. Black people
But
act like
how is
we
our
come from
modern day
trauma.
culture built on trauma? Our history, our ancestors suffered trauma, but
I
our
mean,
modern
think
day
about
that's
culture is
all I was
Bradley.
based on
explain.
was
No,
Bradley
wait.
trauma.
took
I
a
want you guys.
huge.
Wait. No, I'm going to ask some
Mhm.
specific questions.
Of course.
How are greens built on trauma? Because I love the hell out of some collard greens. How is the
Well,
Low
Oh,
Country
they used
rice?
to tell
How is the Low
us they
Country
used
rice,
to
y'all?
beat
I
them to
clearly
make
need
them
to make some
greens.
Low Country rice because I keep thinking
I
about it.
need to make some
How is Low
greens.
Country rice built on trauma? Do you
Okay.
know what I'm saying? How is
What about chitlins? What about
how are
chitlins?
the dances we do built on trauma?
The butt. Well, I
No,
mean, the
I'm not
booty
talking about the butt
shaking.
jiggling. I'm not.
Okay,
That's not
because
even a
that's a
dance.
huge part of it. So we
I'm
can't
not
ignore
talking
if you're
about
talking
shaking
about
that booty
dancing.
fat.
If you're
Well,
talking about
if you
dancing,
listen to
that's one
like
of
hip
our
hop
biggest
dances,
issues right
they
now.
tell you with hip hop
She's like
history
the butt,
that a
Make
lot
it
of the
clap.
booty
breaking and
fat.
all that was them
Okay, so
rebelling against the oppression at the time. They
you're
say
not
that.
talking about twerking, right? You're talking about
We're
Nope.
not
other
talking.
dances.
I mean, actual. Okay, so you know what's really interesting is Mr. and I were laughing. If you guys go to my video, oh, what video was it? I can't. My paternalism video. At the beginning of that video, I have something by McGraw-Hill. It's an old video about McGraw-Hill made. You know, the textbook makers. Um, and they did a video on paternalism and white European benevolence. So this is a real thing. Back in the 50s, they were still making these kind of videos. And so in the video, they were talking about how they civilized the black and how, you know, white people take care of people, you know, black people and stuff like it. We were the focus of their video.
I
Don't
The
re-
white
ask
I
me
man's
why.
remember that.
burden.
I
You
just
remember that?
finished.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
remember
just
the
watched that a few
dances?
days ago. Yes.
Do you remember and how does that not look like what we do?
Okay. Yeah, but
And Mr. and I were like, well, this brother is like the way he was dancing. It's so
yeah, the
reminiscent of
jitterbug.
our dances in America. We were looking, he's a whole African. He's naked dancing. He was like, he was doing the Matrix and all this. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is what we don't even understand that we've preserved African culture. But in looking at that man in this racist video, that people who teach so I said, take your kids out of public schools, okay? Because McGraw Hill makes textbooks. And so these racists got together and made a video about paternalism and taking care of the black man. And in the video, we can see an African native dancing before, you know, the white woman came to civilize him. Literally, this is what happened. I'm not making this up. And so, and so that is something I can look at that man in Africa way back in the day in a black and white film, and I see him dancing, and that is reminiscent of our culture in America. That is reminiscent of what we do here. We might have been brought in slavery, but we did preserve much of that. And there's so many elements of our culture, even the foods, the way we prepare our foods, right? All of that thing, believe it or not, these are preservation of culture that we have had for eons before we ever came to America.
But
And that
Miss
is no
Irene,
different or no less precious than the Mexican people and what the heck they're doing. And the
but what
German
is
people and
it
what the heck.
doing
I mean,
for us?
America is a melting pot. Why is everybody else's culture it's valid, but our culture is not? And as far as it being based on trauma, look, your beginning is not slavery, but
No, it's not.
our unique American culture, the beginning of that as Black people is slavery, and that's true. But that's not the beginning of our Blackness. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a part of the journey of our Blackness, right? The Jews were not always in Germany, right? At one point, the Jews were over in the Middle East. They're Middle Eastern. It's a journey, and we should look at slavery as part of the journey of the African diaspora. It's not the beginning of our culture, but it is a significant part, and it's a part of recent history because it just happened a few hundred years ago. But our
Mm-hmm.
culture obviously extends back further than that, and we do have many things that we preserve in America that maybe out of ignorance we don't recognize are very similar.
Irene, I
But
think
these are
it's
the
important.
material things of our culture. These are the things that we can laugh at and have fun with and enjoy around the table and everything. But what about the part of our culture that has us killing each other? What about the part of our culture where a black woman
Right.
or girl is getting killed and maimed or arred every six
Hmm.
hours? What
But
about
those
that
things
part
can
of
be
our culture? That
corrected. You
part is
think
the
that
part
doesn't
that
exist in
stems from
other
And
slavery.
those
cultures?
are the parts that need to
No,
go
wait.
away.
No, we're not going to do that either. We're not going to do
No,
that
no, you're
either
right. You're
because
right. You're
we are
right.
so quick. We're so self-critical. And let me be clear. Y'all know I'm down to criticize us. I have a whole, I'm sure 200 videos on this channel criticizing us. Broken black minds, a white doctor tells the truth. You know, can we can is can we assimilate into whiteness? Like you guys know, I will drag the heck out of our problems. and make us face those. So I'm not trying to be a problem denier, but I'm going to say this. What we won't do is pretend like there are not greater and more egregious problems going on in other people's cultures. White people have the highest child sexual abuse rates. This is their vibe. It's their vibe here. It's their vibe in Europe. Europe, their actual motherland, has the highest child sexual abuse rates ever, and this is part of their culture. This has been
Not to
going on
mention
since
that
Greco-Roman times.
Black
If
people don't
white people
report their
won't do
trauma.
anything else, if white people won't do anything else, they will abuse a child.
Okay, but
right?
Black
Something
people
else
don't
that's
report
part of their
ours.
culture. Something else that is part of their culture is holding the underclass hostage. Before they started holding Black people hostage, they were in their own country, and they were even here in this country holding other white people hostage.
They sure
This
were.
is a huge part of their culture. Degrading of women. You think degrading of women is unique to Black culture? That's actually something that
No.
we've
We
picked
didn't say
up from
that.
European culture.
No,
They are
and they
Yeah,
very
pick it up from the
nobody
degrading.
said
Middle
any
East.
of those
Say
things.
that,
They
Irene.
pick it up from the Middle East.
No
You're
one's.
on a tangent.
Sometimes Irene says stuff that no one's saying. Like, all I'm
No,
saying
it's
is that, look,
she
I
is
was
right
raised
on
in
track.
American Black culture, and I was raised in American Black culture. I don't know why everyone else does what they do in their culture, because I wasn't raised in it. So what I'm saying is, all the negative, or at least some of the major negatives in the Black American culture, let's work to get rid of it.
I agree with that.
Everything else that's benign and fine and good, keep it.
I was working to get rid of it. Y'all
And understand, and I want everybody to remember this. This is what I was saying from the beginning, and then Irene went
I was working
ate
to get
crap.
rid of it.
Oh, don't talk about bestiality. Oh, don't you know those
No,
Middle
don't talk about
Easterns?
it.
Those
But you
Middle
see,
Easterns
That's just
and
gross.
some of these off in the
weird.
country Europeans
Oh.
Yeah.
are real quick to stick their thing in an animal, and they
This
think it's
conversation-
okay, like it's a
This
normal
conversation
part of
got
life.
dark.
sheep.
This
all
got
that.
dark. Can we
No,
not
I'm
think
just
about
no.
that?
It's the truth,
My
though.
point is that
Oh,
is
God.
that we have to be self-critical, but sometimes, and I agree with being self-critical. You guys know, I if there's nothing I love more, it's to get self-critical, right?
So you feel like we're too self-critical?
I'm sorry.
You feel like we're too self-critical?
No, I don't think we're too self-critical. I think we become self-critical, and when we are criticizing ourselves, we're saying it as other people don't have these kind of problems, right?
Wait,
And my thing is, if we
do.
really look at it, other people have these kind of problems and more. So we should be self-critical. We should be self-critical, but we don't need to act like we're the only community out here with some really egregious, really seriously problematic BS going on.
What we're saying is we don't want to live that anymore. We don't want to.
My point is that if you're trying to escape, that, the communities you will go to have their own basket of issues.
True.
Yeah, but we know that.
And that's why I am on the adverse side of thinking, if I simply don't date Black, I can avoid issues. The reality is, because we don't grow up in a white or an Asian, and I'm throwing out things that aren't racist, so I'm gonna throw out some cultures, because we don't grow up in a European or an Asian, a non-Black culture, a non-Black American culture. From the outside looking in, it looks amazing. From the outside looking in, it looks great.
They still have protection of the men. They still have men to build up them. They still have men to build and provide and make communities.
Well, let's be clear. Let's be clear. If when we enter these spaces, when we as Black women, let me talk to Black women, because we're talking about protection, and that's something y'all men need to protect yourselves. So let's talk about Black women. When we talk about protection, understand that when you enter these spaces, you as a Black woman are not what's being protected. Europeans protect who they own, regardless of gender, race, color, or any weirdness that you're up to, because they're on some global domination stuff. Yes. So you don't even have to, for European protection, you don't need to marry into a European community to get European protection. You're going to get that by being in the Western world. They're not going to play games, not even if they hate you. They're going to protect you because they have a global perspective. I agree with that, but you don't have to marry into their community to get that protection. They're just divvying that out, period.
Well, then why are Black women getting killed at
Look,
such high
even the
rates?
Black man is protected by the European. Let's just keep it real here. Look, everybody.
Yeah, but we're getting killed. We're getting killed and maimed so much. They're not protecting us. Because we're over here messing with Black
about
men.
the protection issue, and I think the issue is because a lot of Black children, whether it be male or female, didn't have their number one protector, which is supposed to be their father. So they have a warped view of who should be protecting them. And I try to teach women, it don't matter if they're black or not, this. Normally they don't have a father. You can't expect random men that are good may step in and help, but you can't just expect that's just gonna happen all the time. You gotta get someone
They
who's
don't
going to
do it at
protect you, and
any
that's
of the
probably gonna be
time.
your
What are you
boyfriend.
talking about? At
Well,
no point in time
then
do I ever
you're
really see guys just out here taking care of their kids or protecting women and children. I just don't see it.
I really want to stress because the
well,
ladies in the
Luna,
chat
you
are
might be
about to
around bad people.
bust a brain cell. I'm not saying y'all know I don't care about interracial dating.
And
I'm just
everyone
saying
in the hood is bad then, because the majority of the black population are in urban communities, and a lot of the women
If
are
you
saying
just
that
the hood, don't go over there.
a lot of the women are saying they don't see protection in these urban communities, and this is where we are.
There is no protection in the urban communities. What are you
Yeah,
talking
this
about?
is
At
so
any point in
sad. We're
time,
sitting
I could
here
walk down the
begging for
street and be murdered by a black guy.
That's
And
why
that's
I
just
mean
what it is.
honestly, but whoa. Let's
I agree with
let's keep it real. Let's keep it real.
And let's be
When we
honest, it's
bring up
black women
murder
murdering
and
too.
violent crimes, these are crimes that are almost never committed in America, period. And honestly, even in the hood, people aren't literally in mass just walking out and getting killed. That's
I'm
not
giving
happening.
an
If it
example.
was, nobody
In
would
New
be
York,
left.
Look
right
at
It's
all
now,
not
these
you
in
want
black
Matt.
to
Not
women.
I.
You
Now
have
I've never
black
lived. Wait a
Irene,
children.
you're saying
second. Calm
extreme. We're
down, y'all.
talking
I know I've
about
never lived in the
people.
hood. Don't come for me. I've never lived in the hood, but I'm going to say this. I don't have to live in the hood to know that that most black people live in the hood and most black people are still alive and most black people haven't almost been killed by another black person.
What are
So
you
we
talking about?
cannot
We got all
act like
Irene,
most black
Oh,
every
wait,
people
6
no,
are
no.
walking through the
hours.
hood
There's a
Irene, I
in
woman
fear
disagree
of
with
their
you.
life.
Irene, I
Every
disagree with
6
you.
hours.
This is
Okay,
where I
wait. Are you
disagree
guys
with you,
saying that in
because
the hood,
protection
every
is
time
not
you
just
walk out the
dying.
door, you
You
almost
are
get
at
killed?
It could be
risk.
assault.
You are
There
at
was a
risk.
Sexual
drive-by by
assault.
my house like 2 weeks ago. I mean, with machine guns. These niggas actually stopped, reloaded, and
You got
started shooting again.
Jalisa, get off my head, girl. Jalisa's on my head. Stop. Are y'all okay? Fine. I
you
won't
gotta
even. Fine. I'm
remember
not
Be
gonna
that
bring up the
sexual.
like
It
hood.
could be
Irene,
Fine.
sexual
you're
assault.
being
Fine.
It
You
could be
super
can't go to the
dramatic.
grocery store in the hood without getting
No,
shot.
you
I'm not
can't.
gonna
That
argue
lady
with
that
y'all.
went to the grocery store got slapped on the
Most
booty
of the
by a
people
black
in the
man and
hood
then
are
got shot.
criminals, right? I think most of the
Yes,
people in the hood are
I think most of the
law-abiding
men in the hood.
citizens.
I think most of the men in the hood are
You think
criminals.
most of the people in the hood are
Yeah,
criminals? Most of
Most
the
of
people
the
in the hood are
men,
Irene,
regular
I'm
most of
people.
the
also
Irene,
from
you
men,
the
should
hood,
move
most
to
of
the
the
but I
hood.
men,
know that.
No, I'm
most
not
of the
moving to
men,
the hood.
most of
I
the
am
You
not
should
from
men,
try
the
that
hood,
for
and
like a
I do
month.
know that.
most of the men are criminals. What are you talking about, Irene?
Yes, they are. Yes, they
If they're
are.
not
Most of the
to
men in
shady
the hood are
business,
criminals.
Yes.
Yes.
they're up to
Okay, put
As
a
shady
one
as a
in the
business.
man
chat
who
if
was
you
raised in
put a
black
one.
culture, who has
Put a
lived in the
one in the
hood, that
chat
is
if you
true.
think most of the men in the hood are criminals. Patchy,
Most
And
you
of
I'm
agree
not
most
from
of the
the
men in
hood,
the hood are
Irene. I
criminals?
grew
Most
up
of the
with a
men in
silver
the hood are
spoon.
not criminals.
Rather you
Then
talk
they
about rather be petty or big. If we count petty, yeah.
Yeah,
Some of
all of
y'all
them,
in this
all the
chat be
criminals,
asking
all
some
the
dumb
crimes.
questions. What do you mean, why don't I move? I'm going to move. Obviously, you have to have finances together. I'm trying to buy a fucking house. Like, stop asking dumb questions. We're trying to have a real conversation.
I've
Hey,
never lived in the
Y'all,
Irene,
hood,
I
but
y'all
I
are
think you
know
really
should
that
just
move
gonna
to the
put
culture
ones
is.
in
hood.
the chat like that. That's what we're doing
Most
out
of
here.
the
We're
men
not.
are criminals, Irene. You
Yes,
just don't
yes.
want
Yes,
to
they
believe it.
are. They
Y'all
really
Irene, I
ending this
told
are.
you you live in
conversation.
like
if they're
fairy
not
tale land.
You
criminals,
don't look to
friend
be
with
in
Irene,
the hood.
Sir,
You
criminals.
look
go
Irene,
real
ahead.
where do
rich.
you live? Where are
Irene,
you?
if they're
Yeah,
not criminals, they're friend with criminals.
Yes, these
y'all
niggas
have the
will literally.
audacity to put some ones in the chat. You guys are supposed to agree with the hostess.
And
What in
they
the
date
frick?
they date
No,
women
no,
that's
no,
criminals too.
Irene.
Everybody's
What in the
committing
Fraggle
criminal
Rock is
acts.
going on around
Irene, I
here?
know for a
It's the
fact I can
truth
go.
is what's
I
going
can walk
on.
anywhere down the street and there's a guy like, you want to buy some weed? And I'm just
You're
like,
doing
yeah, I
you're
Exactly.
want to
doing
buy
too
some
much.
Hey,
weed.
little
No,
And
mama.
we're
unless
not gonna say
they can
selling
legally
weed.
sell the weed,
No,
I'm
we're not
just
no,
gonna
unless
bring
giving.
up
it's
I'm
sell.
legal,
just
it's a
giving an
crime.
We are
example.
not gonna bring up selling weed at all. We're not gonna
Okay,
go
I'm just
there.
giving
When
an
It's
there's
horrible
example.
a
Oh, they'll kill
behavior
you over
dispensary
because
some
it's
on
weed.
every other
They
illegal.
will
corner in
kill
San
you over some
Francisco. We're
weed,
not gonna do that.
Irene. They will
We're
kill
not
They'll
gonna
you
do
kill
San
over
you
that.
over
some
Francisco is
weed.
weed.
legal,
Steal
isn't
some
it?
weed from a thug. He will kill you over some weed. Okay.
Why would
He
you
really
steal
will.
weed?
I'm just giving an example, Irene.
See, you're a criminal. You talking about criminality. Like, it takes one to know one. What's going on around here?
I'm not gonna. Okay, so I
That's
did.
how
I
I
did
know.
have a little. I went. I had a light rail ticket and it turned into a warrant because I forgot to pay it. So I am technically like a thug out here in these streets.
I think I was a felon felon once as well. I cleared it up, but for a while I was a felon. because
I went to
I
jail
didn't
for
go to
3
court.
days, y'all. So
Oh,
I know
this
I
is
know
a
the
pod
struggle.
call the killer, but I'm about to beat y'all up. Really?
I went to jail for 3 days, so I
You
know
can't be like
about hood life.
all these Negroes are criminals. And then she's like, well, I caught a felony. So
Bernie,
No,
you're
I
doing this.
mean,
What are you
but seriously,
talking
like
about? I
the
don't have
violent
any non-white
crimes, the
lovers.
No, my
abuse.
record is
What are you
y'all.
clean,
talking
and I
about?
say that most
This
of
nigga
them
out
are
here really
criminals.
hurt.
Oh my
Every
God.
man in my family has been in jail.
Yeah,
Okay,
mine too.
Jaleesa said, Irene, they literally bit this woman in the eye. Yeah, I saw that. That was freaking terrible.
And then the
But
one
I'm not
before that
saying
where she got
I'm not
shot.
trying to claim that these things don't happen.
Irene, it happens a lot more than you know. I can
I'm
walk down
Yes,
the street
saying
right
like,
now,
you need
and
to
if I
watch
don't
the
want to give a man
news,
my
Shay,
number, he
because
will threaten
okay,
me.
I'm gonna
I've
tell
been
you guys a
threatened.
story. No, I'm gonna tell you guys a story. I've never lived in the hood.
We know,
However,
Irene.
I'm about to tell my story. However, one of my favorite aunts and my uncle, they did live in the hood. And in the summer, I would go visit my grandparents, and my grandparents owned 3 houses on this block. And then my other grandparents owned a house, and it was down the street from some projects. And in the projects, my aunt lived in the projects. And this was like back in the day. Like, I know it was the hood because she had like these pieces of paper that weren't like really money. So food stamps. She had food stamps, and she would tear them out of this book, and she would
Oh
like
my
give them to
God.
us. And we would walk down to the corner store and we would get candy, or we would go to the lady's house next door and she would freeze these. I'm pretty sure it was like Kool-Aid in a styrofoam cup, and we would buy them for $1, or per $10 from her. And we were never in any danger ever. The kids played outside. I mean, I didn't feel comfortable there. Like, the issues I had were more like I didn't feel comfortable sitting down. I didn't really want to eat anything from inside of the house because I just have like a phobia of bugs. But as far as my aunt, my uncle, the kids that were in the neighborhood, the people, they were all nice. I was never in any danger. I never felt, and it was part of my summer, part of my summer. Occasionally we would get to go over to my aunt's house. I don't know why I was over there, probably because she was my aunt. And I don't have negative memories about her. The most negative memory I have is of the roaches. I think that's where I gained my trauma about roaches, is over there. But
That's
outside
just
of that, I don't have any negative experiences about being over her house or playing outside. It was just regular, but it was different in that the environment was different. It wasn't as clean and things like that, but the people were very sweet. So I know you guys are going to say, like, obviously that's anecdotal, but my point is, in my experience with that aunt, I never, and I went to my mother flew me out there to see that side of the family and to be with my grandparents and all of that every single summer for the majority of my childhood. So
How old are you?
over years, I visited her house because she lived there for years. She doesn't live there anymore, thank God. But and never once did I have a negative experience over there. Not one time. To me, all the people were regular people. They had jobs, they worked, their kids played outside. They just were poor.
How old
So
were you? How
I
old
guess
were
Hold
I
you?
on.
didn't,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't get,
Irene. How
I
old were
didn't
you?
get that. I don't
How old
understand
were
the
I'm
you?
confused.
pathologizing of poor
What year
people. I
was
mean,
this, Irene?
being poor doesn't make
No,
you
no,
bad.
being poor
Poor
does not
people are not
necessarily
bad
mean you're
How
bad.
old
automatically.
were you? I
What year?
didn't have
You are
Being
any
criminal
not
bad
maybe.
listening to
experience
anything
when
we
I
are
was
saying.
like 10 or 11. Usually when you start to feel unprotected or put in danger is when you start to develop. Like when you start hitting preteen, 13, 14, 15, 16. This is when you get creep men coming up to you, trying to talk to you, talking about, hey, smile, sweetheart. Oh, where you going? Where you coming from? You going
Bring
to
a
school?
man
Can I
up.
walk with you?
You got
No,
a
'cause
man.
if you're like 10, 9, 8, people leave you alone. They don't bother you. Okay, because I used to be in Flatbush for
Oh,
instance.
wait. Okay,
And the
I
time and
mean,
the
I could
time
see that,
period
but I
is
think men
important.
are creepy anyway. Some men just stalk the high school. I mean, people stalked my private school too. Jaleesa said, Irene, this had to be at least 25 years ago. Girl, it was more than 25 years ago.
Yeah,
This
the
fabulous
time
diva
period
said,
matters because back in the day, the hood good people lived in the hood, and they
Yeah.
used to. This is why I said in your last call, Irene, I said the black community had Karens, them old women. Miss Gladys would snitch on the drug dealers. Now they kill Miss Gladys. She
Yeah.
gone.
Oh, are you
They
trying
took
to
Miss
say
Gladys
So
because
out.
the
I'm
hood is
older,
bad.
what I think is the hood is not what the hood is
Yes, Irene.
No,
anymore?
it's
Oh,
I mean,
not.
it's
it
gotten
really
way
is
worse. The hood,
different.
the
It
hood, the
really
hood
So
is.
y'all
used
are
to
up
be a
here calling
place
me
for
old on
poor,
my panel?
good
Is that what
people.
you guys are doing? You
No,
guys
you
are
No,
are
I'm
calling me old
young,
on
calling
my
you
beautiful,
panel?
You
young.
are
unbiased.
I'm calling
That
perfect.
you
is
young, but
correct.
not. I'm
Irene,
calling you
Irene,
young, but not
Irene, you have
recent.
been putting words in our mouth
Young, but
this entire panel.
You are a young, beautiful, and
Would you
vibrant woman.
respect your
yeah.
elders and just let me put words in your mouth? That's
You,
all you gotta
Irene
do,
is doing
baby.
the thing where, Irene, you're so passionate about this subject. And, I feel your passion, but I don't think you really understand where we come from and what we went through and why we made this decision ultimately.
Can you
But then
answer the
again, I feel
question
like
that's on the screen too while you're talking, Luna, by this fabulous diva? She said, "How are you defining the hood?"
I define the hood mostly where Black men live.
I can't do it with you. I don't even know why
Well,
I asked
damn,
you.
Yeah,
Luna.
with
Next
this, like,
person define the hood. Next
I'm not
person.
even black, and that sound bad.
I mean, look, it's trashy. It has like little
dilapidated
wayward Black
houses.
men standing out on corners and stuff, and then
Mm-hmm.
they're
Oh
always trying to
man.
Drinking
talk to
40s.
you, and they got the cars and crap out front working on it. They can spill oil all over the place. They got wayward dogs and stuff just running amok, and just loose animals all throughout the streets because for some reason there's all these damn dogs and no dog owners, and then. Yeah, I mean, it's just trash. I mean, when you're going into the hood, you start to see bits of
Yeah,
glass and
yeah.
trash
Loose
all over the
It's
place.
dirty.
animals.
Yes, you start to
Okay,
see
when
little
I
random
think of the
dogs
hood,
walking.
I'm thinking about
The
a place
dog
that's
look like it's
poverty
limping
Can
because
I
it's
stricken.
get
been in a
somebody
gang
else's
fight.
definition of the hood, please?
Like,
In a
Okay.
minute,
I
in a minute, Luna finna say there's like missiles and nuclear bombs going off and
mean,
grenades.
shit.
Like,
If
There's
it was the
wayward
Middle
They
East,
dogs
can't
that
running
would
they
be
can't
the
amok.
afford
hood.
missiles and nuclear bombs.
There's like
Okay, so
wounded animals walking around that because they done been in animal gang fights. I just when you're going into the hood, guys.
I
You start to
can't
see
do it.
like dudes with no jobs just standing outside on the corners waiting to talk to you. Hey, Ma, come here.
Yeah,
Can I talk to you
oh
for a
man, I
thing?
hate that.
It's just
I
no.
I hate that.
Damn.
Story of
Mama
a life.
Kush, how would you define the hood? We know
See,
Luna
I
thinks it's
grew up.
wayward dogs running amok.
I mean, there are, but that could be I've seen poor white neighborhoods like that too. They have their little hoodie
But that's
areas
the
as well.
trailer park. We're talking about
But
the hood.
yeah, they have a lot of dogs. That's what I was saying. But
Yeah, for some
but
reason, poor people have animals that they don't take care of. I don't know
they
why.
do, and on strings and things.
Mhm.
But I grew up very privileged. I didn't even grow up in America, to be honest with you.
What?
But when I got older and I became a young adult, old teen young adult, I became very rebellious, and I wanted to identify with what it meant to be a Black person, an African American person. So I started meeting and hanging out with people in hoods so that I could understand that. And I'm telling you, hoods are the houses are dirty. These are the houses that rich white people would have lived in probably in like the 1930s. They have never been fixed since then. There's roaches, there's rats, and there's a lot of guns, an unnecessary amount of guns. There's drugs, there's powder, there's pills.
Facts.
There's people walking around. They don't even speak, very good English. You can tell that the people don't really read well.
They're called bushmouth.
A lot of people are drinking like these 40s, and they're getting drunk in the middle of the
No, they're
day.
just styrofoam cups
Um,
full of lean.
yeah, the lean, the cough syrup, it's not even, it's like cough syrup.
It's
It's
really
Robitussin.
Henny's popular now.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay. And like, but the hood is a distinctly different place because for me, I was in DC. I ventured out into the DC hood, and it is gross over there. Like, it is nasty, and people get killed and robbed and arred a lot. And there's a lot of half naked babies walking around. There's babies with dirty
Well, in
diapers, and they're
fairness,
just
all
Every
babies
screaming.
are
every
half
child
naked.
with caps in their
All
No, I
mouth
mean,
babies
is
are
but
half
bad as
naked.
hell, and y'all
they're
know it.
dirty. They've got
I've never
snot
met a
coming out
child
of
with
their
caps in their
nose.
mouth who
Like,
wasn't a badass. I'm sorry. Like,
Okay,
there's
all
always a
babies
child with
aren't dirty,
caps.
but all babies are half naked with snot coming out of their
No, but
nose. That's
all
kind of
babies
no,
like the
with
but
those
these
baby
with those
theme.
these
silver
babies are
teeth, it's
crusty.
the
These
babies
are
with the
crusty
silver
babies.
teeth in their mouth because the parents they don't take care of their teeth.
They
They got
do.
the
They
silver caps
do.
in their mouth and they be bad as hell. And it'd be the parents' fault, but still,
And
there's
the baby just
always
sitting there crying. Ain't nobody
all
helping
the
the
time
baby. It's
diaper
just a mess.
full. They don't change it.
Diaper
I mean,
full, brown and
the
wet,
diaper is always full. The potty train
always
him. He's
full.
like
Dang it.
2.
Patchy, do you agree with this?
Barefoot. I mean, I guess that's okay, but
Yeah. I mean, the
Bonnet
hood,
on.
the hood for me was like, gunshots at night,
mm-hmm.
basketball goals, no rim, little kids with syrup all over their body for some reason because they don't
Oh my
take
gosh.
baths.
I can't do it.
I ain't gonna lie. When I was a little kid, I couldn't stand like you give your friend a handshake, his hand sticky. He could have got maple syrup on his hand, something weird. Um, Fast women, teenage girls trying to sleep with little boys.
I don't watch
Pimps.
movies.
There's a lot of. I mean, to me, it's normal. I mean, but that's because I was raised over there. But
You guys
it's
sound like
not
white
right.
people with all these stereotypes, but they're saying
But
they
this is
grew
what
up
I
in the hood.
saw. This is what
Yeah,
I lived, and I dated
They're
It's not
saying
guys
that's where they
from
stereotypes.
grew
there.
up.
This is not
Irene, it's
stereotypes.
about
I
San
grew up. I grew
Francisco.
up in Brooklyn. Okay, there are in there are poverty stricken areas, and this is what I saw: the hood buildings, the projects. You have people rolling out with dressed, talking like mush mouths. They have guns. They have nothing to do with themselves. They're standing on the corner. They're harassing you. This is not made up. I don't understand why they don't
No, I
believe
don't.
that
This
it's
is
not.
this
I
is
just think
real.
black people don't like to hear the negative stuff. Okay, like for somebody like me, that's what I see. That's what I see. What are you talking about? I grew up in a lot of major hoods. I grew up in the Tenderloin over in Frisco. I grew up in LA. I've lived in
Oh, the
Oakland for a little
Tenderloin
bit.
is the hood.
The
That's true.
Tenderloin got
But wait, but in
Southeast
the
DC.
Tenderloin is okay. The Tenderloin though, yeah, people are pooping and peeing on the street. I don't think we could bring up San Francisco. San Francisco is
San
next
Francisco
level.
is a dirty little place, but it's
Because
so
because
great.
here's the thing, the Tenderloin is that way, but the place where all the black people are in Hunters Point, a lot of those people are homeowners. Actually, yeah, if Hunters Point is the
No,
hood,
Hunter's Point back in the day was ghetto as
no, Hunters
hell.
Point now is still a bunch of homeowners and stuff. Back in the day, it was a lot of homeowners and stuff. I mean, it's still considered the poor, segregated part of San Francisco, but I wouldn't call it
Maybe
dangerous.
that's not
Definitely,
a
when you
hood.
go there, it's a downgrade as far as appearance wise, but it's not the Tenderloin.
No,
It's like
Hunter's Point looks
the
better now, but
Tenderloin is like, I think the Tenderloin is more drug people than anything.
yeah, and like I think because Hunter's Point back in the day reminds me of like what I think it was like Modesto or what it was one of those dirty little places that I lived in where it's just like there's always whores outside, there's always gunshots going on. Because
Yeah, it's
my
kind of like
mom
that in the
has an
Tri Valley. Yeah,
affinity.
that's true.
My
Yeah, the
mom
Tri
used to
Valley is
move
kind
to
of
all
kind
of
of
the
like that.
hoods, and I used
But
to
but the
suffer
Tri
because of
Valley,
it.
but the Tri Valley is the country. I mean, California version of country. So
Yeah,
that's kind of
because
why they're like
country
that
to
out
me
there.
is out here in Texas. Texas is country as hell. And who was that dummy who said that black people, Baby Juju, when he was talking about black people don't wear like cowboy boots and like trucks? Because a lot of the black men here, they like their trucks and their
Yeah,
motorcycles
I've
and
seen a
stuff.
lot of attractive black men in really nice jeans and cowboy hats and
Cowboy
big
hat,
belt
They
and
The
boots.
big
Yeah,
issue
stretchy
I see
Texas
with
is
stripes.
the
like
hood
that
thing is
way.
That's a whole
they
vibe.
romanticize the hood
Y'all
and
gonna
the
have
and the
me out here
violence.
buying
That's the
Mistress
big
some
issue.
cowboy gear.
Hey, ride 'em cowboy.
Oh,
Oh
the
God.
cowboys out here in Texas are yummy as hell. I love when the man wears like, the cowboy boots and like a nice t-shirt, the button up with the big ass lifted truck. I don't know why, but I love those big ass lifted trucks for no reason. It's so ignorant. I just love it.
Hey, they love it too.
Yeah, it's usually popular in the South. Those cowboy boots.
Yeah, they also do the cars with the little spikes on them. I don't know what they're called, but I know they drive side to side in the streets and be making music videos all the time.
Okay, what are our final words? We totally went into a whole nother conversation, which I'm fine with. I'm fine with it. What are our final words on this? I started this conversation out like throwing out a challenge. I want to really thank Mama Kush and Luna for kind of holding it down and being the only people brave enough to be honest because it made the conversation interesting. But to all of you suckers who did not come up here, especially the men, oh my gosh, like you guys are literally making your entire bread and butter being a fool over in the manosphere, and yet none of you could wander your little happy selves over here to defend your points. That I just was very disappointed in. But I appreciate Mama Kush and Luna coming up. And oh gosh, okay, don't tell me. Shail,
Yes.
Ooh, thank God I
Yay.
got it. Because I was like, do not let me butcher her name. Do not let me butcher her name. Because I'm old and forgetful. I appreciate you coming up. And Patchy, you as always, and everybody that came up that's no longer here, whose names, y'all, I'm old. So just my memory is never been good. So it's really not good anymore. Um, but I'm interested in your final words, either on this topic or just in general. It doesn't have to be on this topic because we've kind of moved on since then. Or nobody can give final words, and I'll
Oh,
just.
I thought everybody was gonna like go in a row. We'll
Oh,
start.
Oh,
I'll
should
okay.
I
just wait
should
my
I should
turn.
I
No.
decide who goes, or can you guys just kind of duke it out?
You
Okay,
decide.
Oh no, I'm so indecisive. Why would you do that? That's
just
the
start
wrong action.
talking.
Okay, we'll just go in the order that I see everybody. So Mama Kush.
The last thing I will say is that Black women, you just have to protect yourself and you have to be happy. That's the biggest thing at the end of the day. Wherever you go that makes you happy, that's fine. But I think a lot of us have noticed that happiness is not within our own community, and I think that it is sad, but it's also we've got to preserve our own. I mean, the pursuit of happiness we all have a right to. The end. Everybody have a good night.
Yay!
Good night, and thank you, Mama Kush,
Thank
for
you so
coming
much
up.
for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
For sure. Patchy, what about you?
Yeah, the things I'll add is that, when it comes to the race thing, a lot of, I can't say for myself because I don't view things that way, but for a lot of black men that I know that talk about dating out and stuff, a lot of them are have bad experiences with black women or have bad interpretations. So I just say for any man that calls himself black that's listening, just remember that everyone's an individual, even people within a made up race. So you could date whoever you want, but just remember there are good women, I mean, that are black. So you can always date them. And for the hood conversation, because that was funny, but uh, black people need to stop romanticizing the hood and stop using movies, their fiction. Stop talking about movies as they're realistic. They're not. They're fake, and half the time y'all forget what even happened in the movie. I'm tired of people watching Men's Society and saying they did old dog wrong when he killed the Asian people because they fought in the store. That man was a murderer. He was insane, but people look up to that character. So, as random as that sounds, some people know what I'm talking about. They look up to these characters and then they go imitate them in the streets. But that's all I gotta say.
Thank you for coming up, Patchy. Shail.
I would say, ladies, black women keep leveling up. Pick the man that's gonna do the most for you, is gonna work for you, serve you, love you, protect you, provide for you, and don't let anyone tell you anything less.
Thank you. Luna, darling.
Okay. I think a lot of people were confused about the topic. Uh, it was never about hating your own blackness. It was about you choosing to be with someone else, and ultimately, obviously, if your kids get with the person of, the other race, then it's going to breed out your blackness. That's what the conversation was about. So when it comes down to black people who love other black people, I don't have an issue with that. If that's what y'all want to do, that's fine. I was just personally talking about for me. I don't want that. I don't, I just don't want my child to grow up and see this is the black community. This is all we have to offer. We have no men. There's just children everywhere. There is no building. There's nothing going on. They're always degrading black women. At what point in time do I make a decision for myself where I don't want to subject my children to that? And if that means, promoting, getting away from that and promoting, their father's side, then that's what I choose to do. So it's never about bigging up another race. I know every race has their own issues, but for me personally, I grew up in a black culture. I know what it is. I just don't want that negativity on my children.
Yeah. Thank you, Luna. I appreciate you not hesitating. You were the first one to come up, and I appreciate that. And I did not take it easy on you in the beginning, and you were like, I'm standing by it. You cannot shake me off that square. And I appreciate that because that allowed us to have a conversation. And I think that made Mama Kush said she was feeding off of your confidence, and your the unabashed way that you just shared your point of view. So I appreciate that, because I do think, like, if we're going to be Herc, goodness, I do think if we're going to be having these conversations, like, we should be able to really have the conversations. We should not be able just to have the rhetoric, but what comes behind the rhetoric and the social impact that has. I think it's really important to have those conversations as well. And with that said, I'm interested in what you guys think in the comments. You heard what the ladies and the men had to say. You heard what their stance is. What do you think? The question that I posed at the beginning of this is, so you hate me. Now what? Right? So what is the logical end? And has anybody changed their point of view listening to this conversation? Either saying, I'm ready to divest as a Black man or Black woman, or I am willing to open up my options more to include Black people, or have you remained in the place that you are in? And I know a lot of people really wanted to come up and kind of talk them off a ledge, so to speak. But remember, the conversation was not designed to try to talk them off a ledge. We have a lot of ledge talking, relieving conversations over here. This was really an opportunity to hear their perspective. And I was really curious if the people who don't want to date other Black people and they want to date out exclusively, if they viewed it as self-annihilatory, if they viewed that, if in mass, if that's what it was. And if so, what were their thoughts on that? So that's a hard conversation to have. That's a hard question to be asked. And I just appreciate everybody that came up and spoke about it, especially after I went on my rant. And I think I'll go ahead and leave this public because I think it needs to be had. I may not even put it on the unlisted playlist. It might just stay on the regular page, so y'all won't have to go searching for it. Of course, if you are missing a video, it likely went to my unlisted playlist. So that's where you will find the video that you are missing, or it's for members and Patreon only. That's just an FYI, and I will talk to you guys later.